Hello guys, welcome to Ben 10 What Ifs. So in this video, we will see what if Ben 10 became a villain. Ben 10 x Looma x Attea Harem. If you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to show us some love by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support means the world to us. Now, let's start the story. Chapter 1, The Final Straw. Ben Tennyson stood on the charred remains of what used to be downtown Bellwood, the smell of ash and smoke still hanging in the air 3 days after the attack. His fists clenched as he kicked aside a chunk of concrete, revealing a child's teddy bear underneath, blackened around the edges. "I warned them," he muttered, picking up the stuffed toy. "I freaking warned them this would happen." The devastation stretched for miles. Alien tech had torn through the city like tissue paper, leaving nothing but rubble and memories. Ben had been off-world when it happened, sent on a wild goose chase by the plumbers to investigate a supposed arms deal on the far side of the galaxy. A coincidence? He didn't believe in those anymore. "Ben!" Gwen's voice called out as she approached, picking her way through the debris. Her eyes were rimmed red from crying, but she'd pulled herself together enough to help with recovery efforts. "Grandpa Max is asking for you at the base. They're having some kind of emergency meeting." "Yeah. A bit late for emergencies, don't you think?" Ben tossed the teddy bear back onto the pile of rubble. Gwen frowned. "That's not fair. Nobody could have predicted, I predicted it." Ben snapped, whirling around to face her. "I told the plumbers that Siphon was building something big. I tracked the shipments, I followed the money. And what did they do? They told me I was overreacting and sent me to check out some fake weapons deal on Terradino. I know you're upset. Ben laughed hollowly. "Gwen, half the city is gone. My parents are in critical condition. 2,000 people are dead. Upset doesn't begin to cover it." He tapped the Omnitrix, scrolling through his alien roster with practiced ease. The familiar green glow illuminated his face as he transformed into XLR8. "Tell Max I'll be there in a bit. I need to check something first." Before Gwen could respond, he was gone, leaving only a blur and a gust of wind in his wake. She sighed, pulling out her plumber badge to report in. The plumber base underneath Bellwood was bustling with activity. Agents from across the galaxy had poured in, ostensibly to help with the crisis. Ben, back in human form, strode through the corridors, ignoring the looks from other agents. Some were sympathetic, others accusatory, as if somehow Earth's greatest hero should have prevented this despite being deliberately sent away. He punched the access code to the main command center harder than necessary. The doors slid open to reveal Magistrate Patelade, Rook Blanco, and several senior plumbers gathered around a holographic display of the devastated city. "Tennyson, good, you're here," Patelade said, not looking up from the display. "We're coordinating relief efforts and, where's Max?" Ben interrupted, scanning the room. Rook stepped forward. "Magister Tennyson is in communication with the High Protectorate. He should return shortly." "The High Protectorate," Ben repeated, his voice flat. "Interesting timing." Something in his tone made Rook pause. "What do you mean?" Ben pulled a data chip from his pocket and tossed it onto the table, disrupting the hologram. "Check that out. Might be educational." Patelade frowned but inserted the chip into the console. New images replaced the city map, communications logs, travel records, and financial transactions. "What exactly are we looking at, Tennyson?" "Proof that the plumbers knew about Siphon's plan 3 months ago." Ben's voice was deathly calm as he pointed to specific entries. "These are requisition orders for chromium particles. Only use: powering a Chronosapien doomsday device. And these?" He jabbed at another section. "Transport logs showing the components being moved to an assembly facility 2 systems away." "That doesn't mean," Patelade began. "And this," Ben continued, tapping another file open, "is a message from Magister Arnix warning about the device. It was received, flagged as priority, and then buried. The response authorized no action at this time. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Where did you get this information? Rook finally asked. I've been doing my own investigation since I got back. Turns out plumber security isn't as tight as you'd think when you're the guy who's saved the universe a dozen times. Ben's smile held no humor. The question is, why was this ignored? Why was I sent away right when the attack was imminent? The doors slid open, and Max Tennyson walked in. His face showed the strain of recent days, new lines etched into his weathered features. He took one look at the displayed files and his expression hardened. Ben, we need to talk privately. No, I think everyone needs to hear this, Ben said, crossing his arms. Why was Siphon allowed to attack Earth, Grandpa? Max's eyes darted to the other plumbers in the room. It's complicated, Ben. There were political considerations. Political considerations? Ben's voice rose. What politics are worth 2,000 lives? The High Protectorate felt that a controlled incident might be necessary to justify increased plumber presence in this sector, Max said slowly, each word clearly painful for him to speak. Ben stared at his grandfather, disbelief etched across his face. You knew. You knew and you let it happen. It wasn't supposed to be this destructive. Max protested. The intelligence suggested a minor attack, something we could contain with minimal casualties. Intelligence from where? Ben demanded. The same people who buried Arnix's warning. The same ones who sent me on a wild goose chase. The decision came from the highest levels, Ben. Sometimes sacrifices, don't. Ben cut him off, his voice deadly quiet. Don't you dare say sacrifices have to be made. Not when it's other people doing the dying. The Omnitrix glowed as Ben's emotions surged. His hand hovered over it, trembling slightly. Ben, Rook said cautiously, stepping between him and Max, perhaps we should all take time to process this information. Ben looked around the room, at the faces of the organization he'd trusted for years. The organization that had used him, manipulated him, and now had blood on their hands. I'm done processing, he said. I'm done with all of it. He slammed his hand down on the Omnitrix. The flash of green light revealed heat blast, flames erupting around his body with intensity that matched his rage. Ben, don't. Max shouted. Heat blast raised his hands, but instead of attacking, he sent a concentrated blast at the ceiling above the data terminals. Alarms blared as molten metal rained down, destroying the equipment and setting off sprinkler systems throughout the base. Consider that my resignation, Ben said as he reverted to human form amidst the chaos. He walked calmly toward the exit as plumbers scrambled to contain the damage. Rook moved to intercept him. Ben, this is not the solution. Ben paused, looking at his former partner. You're right. But I just figured out what is. He stepped around Rook and left without looking back. 2 weeks later, on the outskirts of the solar system, a massive space station orbited silently. Once a plumber monitoring outpost for this sector, it now flew no flags or insignias. Inside, Ben sat in what used to be the commander's chair, reviewing data streams from across the galaxy. The takeover had been surprisingly easy. A combination of way big strength, gray matter's intelligence, and Ghost Freak's infiltration capabilities had overwhelmed the skeleton crew in minutes. Most had fled in escape pods, Ben had allowed that. A few had tried to fight and were now locked in the station's brig. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the plumber headquarters, said a nervous technician, one of the station's original crew who had quickly switched allegiance when Ben offered better terms than the plumbers ever had. Ignore it, Ben replied. They've called 17 times in the past week. I've got nothing to say to them. It's not the plumbers this time, sir. The signal is coming from Koros. Ben frowned. Koros, homeworld of the Tetramans. Put it through, but be ready to cut it if needed. The main screen flickered to life, revealing the crimson four-armed form of a female Tetramand. Her armor gleamed with the polished care of nobility, and her expression was one of amused interest rather than hostility. "Ben Tennyson," she said, her voice carrying the natural gravel of her species. "I was beginning to think you were ignoring all communication." Ben straightened in his chair. "Looma Red Wind. It's been a while." "Indeed it has, my betrothed." Her lips curved into what passed for a smile among Tetramands. "I've been hearing interesting rumors about your recent career change." "I'm not your betrothed, Looma," Ben said automatically, though without the panic that once accompanied such declarations. "And I doubt the princess of Koros calls exiled heroes for gossip." Looma laughed, a booming sound that seemed to rattle the speakers. "Exiled? Is that what you call seizing a plumber station and turning it into your personal fortress?" "No, Ben Tennyson, I'd call that the first step in a conquest." Ben's eyes narrowed. "What do you want?" "To meet. Face to face." All four of Looma's arms crossed over her chest. "The son of Tennyson who defeated my father in combat and now turns against his former allies, this interests me greatly." "I'm busy." "Too busy to discuss the Tetramand battle fleet that could either support your position or reduce your station to floating debris?" Her smile widened. "My father still respects strength, Ben. What you've done, taking action instead of following orders, it has impressed him." Ben leaned forward. "You're offering an alliance." "I'm offering a conversation. The rest depends on what we say to each other." Looma uncrossed her arms. "I'll arrive in 6 Earth hours with a small delegation. Just me, my personal guard, and a strategic advisor. No hostile intent." Before Ben could respond, she continued, "And Ben? We're something nice. This could be considered our first official courtship meeting." The transmission cut off, leaving Ben staring at a blank screen. "Sir," the technician ventured after a moment of silence. "Should we prepare defenses?" Ben drummed his fingers on the armrest. "No. Prepare a reception area in the main hangar bay. And find me something to wear that isn't this." He gestured to his torn jeans and faded t-shirt. He hadn't exactly packed for a long-term space station occupation. As the technician hurried away, Ben turned back to his data screens. Tetraman support could change everything. They were among the most formidable warrior races in the galaxy, with technology and resources that would instantly legitimize his position. Of course, there was the small matter of Looma still considering them engaged. But compared to the problems he'd faced recently, that seemed almost quaint. The Tetraman shuttle dwarfed the station's hangar bay, its crimson hull decorated with the symbols of the royal house of Koros. Ben stood at the base of the landing ramp, flanked by 2 station security officers. He'd found a semi-formal uniform in the station commander's quarters that fit well enough after minor alterations. The shuttle's ramp extended with a hiss of hydraulics, and Looma descended, her imposing height and 4 muscular arms making her presence impossible to ignore. She wore ceremonial battle armor that gleamed under the hangar lights, clearly chosen to impress rather than for actual combat. "Ben Tennyson," she said, her voice carrying easily across the hangar. "You clean up well for someone in the midst of a rebellion." "Not a rebellion," Ben corrected. "More of a career adjustment." Looma's laugh echoed through the hangar. "Call it what you will. The galaxy sees a hero who finally tired of taking orders and decided to give them instead." She approached until she stood directly before him, looking down from her superior height. "My father sends his regards. And his curiosity. Warlord Gar is curious about me now. Last time we met, he was trying to force me to marry you. That was before you seized a strategic military installation with nothing but a wristwatch and determination." Looma made a gesture, and her guards brought forward an ornate box. "He sends this as a token of respect." Ben nodded to his security officers, who stepped forward to accept and scan the box. After confirming it contained no weapons or explosives, they handed it to Ben. Inside lay an intricate Tetraman war gauntlet, sized for a human arm. Traditionally given to warriors who have earned a place in Tetraman battle songs, Looma explained. My father believes your recent actions qualify. Ben lifted the gauntlet, examining its craftsmanship. Thank him for me. Though I'm not sure I've done anything worth singing about yet. Yet, Looma repeated, emphasizing the word. That's why I'm here. To see what comes next. Ben gestured toward the station interior. Let's continue this conversation somewhere more comfortable. As they walked through the corridors, Ben could feel Looma's eyes on him, assessing. The station crew gave them a wide berth, clearly intimidated by the Tetraman delegation. Your operation is impressive for something so hastily assembled, Looma observed. How many crew remained loyal to you? About 30%, Ben answered. Most of them were already disillusioned with Plummer leadership. The rest are new recruits, people who believe in what I'm doing. And what exactly are you doing, Ben Tennyson? Besides occupying a single outpost. They entered what had been the station's conference room, now repurposed as Ben's strategic center. Holographic displays showed star systems, resource maps, and communication networks spanning several sectors. I'm creating a safe zone, Ben said, activating the main display. The plumbers talk about protecting the galaxy, but they're compromised by politics and bureaucracy. They let Earth get attacked because some committee decided it served their agenda. Looma studied the displays. And you believe you can do better? I know I can. Ben's voice hardened. No political games. No sacrificing innocent people. Direct action when threats emerge. Noble goals, Looma said, circling the display. But you'll need more than this station and a handful of loyal followers to achieve them. She gestured at the star map. You'll need allies, resources, ships. An army. Is that what you're offering? Looma smiled. Tetramans respect strength, decisive action, and clear purpose. You've shown all three. She placed two of her hands on the table, leaning forward. My father is willing to provide support, ships, warriors, resources, in exchange for certain considerations. Such as a formal alliance between your new organization and Koros. Preferential trade agreements for Tetraman merchants in your territory. And, her smile widened, the fulfillment of our betrothal contract. Ben didn't flinch. He'd been expecting this. The alliance and trade agreements are reasonable. The marriage is not. Why not? Looma straightened to her full height. You need legitimacy. Marriage to the Princess of Koros provides that instantly. You need military support. Tetraman battle fleets are among the most feared in the galaxy. And you need someone who understands conquest and rule. I've been trained for that since birth. It's not about practical considerations, Ben countered. I'm not going to marry someone for political advantage. Then marry me because I'm the only female in the galaxy who truly understands what you're becoming, Looma said, her voice dropping lower. I watched you at the Koros combat tournament years ago. Even then, I saw what others missed, a warrior trapped in a hero's role. Now you're finally becoming what you were meant to be. Before Ben could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. The communication console flashed urgent red. Sir, a voice came through the speakers. 3 plumber enforcement vessels just dropped out of hyperspace. They're demanding immediate surrender of the station and all personnel. Ben exchanged a look with Looma, whose expression had shifted from diplomatic to predatory. Well, betrothed, she said, cracking all 4 sets of knuckles. It seems we have a chance to test our compatibility in battle after all. The plumber enforcement vessels formed a triangular formation around the station, their weapons charged but not yet firing. On the command deck, Ben assessed the situation with Looma and the station's tactical officer. Standard plumber siege protocol, the officer explained. They'll try negotiation first, then escalate to disabling our propulsion and communication systems. Ben nodded. Who's leading them? Magister Rook Blanco, sir. He's requesting to speak with you. Of course it would be Rook. Ben sighed. Put him through. The main screen activated to show Rook's familiar face. He looked tired but determined, his usual stoic expression firmly in place. Ben, he said, formality gone in favor of direct appeal. This has gone far enough. The plumbers are willing to negotiate your return without criminal charges if you surrender the station now. That's generous of them, Ben replied dryly. Especially since I haven't actually broken any galactic laws. Seizing a plumber installation is absolutely against, check your records, Rook. This station was officially decommissioned 3 years ago. Budget cuts. It was scheduled for dismantling before I repurposed it. Rook frowned, clearly not expecting this response. Nevertheless, you are harboring plumber personnel who abandoned their posts. They resigned. I have the paperwork. Ben, Rook's voice took on an urgent tone. Please do not force this confrontation. Many on the High Council believe you are experiencing trauma-induced judgment impairment after the attack on Earth. If you stand down now, trauma-induced judgment impairment? Ben's eyes narrowed. Is that what they're calling it when someone notices they let thousands of people die for political convenience? That situation is under internal investigation. Which will find nothing because the same people who authorized it are running the investigation. Ben leaned forward. You know better than this, Rook. You've seen how the system works. And your solution is to abandon that system entirely? Rook shook his head. What about all the good the plumbers do? The lives they save? I'm not against protecting people. I'm against an organization that picks and chooses who deserves protection based on political expediency. Ben gestured to the station around him. I'm creating something better. Rook's eyes shifted slightly, noticing Looma for the first time. By allying yourself with the Tetramans? Ben, they are a warrior culture known for aggressive expansion. This will only confirm what many already fear, that you are becoming a threat to galactic stability. Looma stepped forward. Magister Blanco, as representative of the sovereign planet Koros, I formally protest this illegal blockade of a diplomatic meeting between our worlds. Princess Looma, Rook acknowledged stiffly. Koros has no recognized diplomatic status with what? She interrupted. This station and its territory are not under plumber jurisdiction, as Tennyson has pointed out. You have no authority here. Ben suppressed a smile. Looma was cleverly establishing the legal framework that this was now sovereign territory, exactly what he needed. Rook's expression hardened. Ben, you have 1 hour to surrender the station. After that, we will be forced to take action. The transmission cut off. He's bluffing, the tactical officer said. Standard plumber vessels aren't equipped for a prolonged siege against a station of this size. Rook doesn't bluff, Ben replied, studying the sensor readings. But he might be hoping for reinforcements. He turned to Looma. Your shuttle, how combat-ready is it? Looma smiled, baring teeth. Fully armed with Tetraman plasma cannons and a crew eager for battle. Is this where our alliance begins, Ben Tennyson? Ben considered his options. He could surrender, try to negotiate, or fight. Surrender meant abandoning everything he was building. Negotiation would only stall until more plumber ships arrived. Which left one option. Tell your shuttle to target the lead vessel's propulsion systems on my signal, Ben said, decision made. Disable, don't destroy. I don't want casualties. Looma nodded, issuing rapid commands in Tetraman to her communication officer. Ben turned to his crew. Activate defensive shields and prepare the station's weapons. Target the flanking vessel's communication arrays. He tapped the Omnitrix, scrolling through his options. I'll handle Rook personally. The crew exchanged nervous glances, but moved to follow his orders. This would be their first real test as a fighting force. "You're going out there yourself?" Looma asked, sounding impressed. "Rook is my friend," Ben said, finding the alien he wanted on the Omnitrix dial. Or was. "He deserves a personal conversation before this gets ugly." He slammed his hand down on the device, and green energy engulfed him. When it faded, a crystalline humanoid stood in his place, Diamondhead, one of his oldest and most versatile transformations. "Station, prepare an airlock for space deployment," Diamondhead commanded, his voice resonating with crystalline tones. "Princess Looma, coordinate with my tactical officer. If Rook fires on me, don't hesitate to respond." Looma clasped her upper right arm in a Tetraman salute. "Fight well, Ben Tennyson. Prove your worth to Koros this day." The vacuum of space enveloped Diamondhead as he propelled himself toward Rook's vessel using crystalline projectiles as makeshift thrusters. He'd done this maneuver before. The crystal structures of this form could survive space exposure indefinitely, and by shooting hardened shards in the opposite direction, he could control his trajectory. He activated his communication implant, establishing a direct channel to Rook's ship. "Coming out for a chat, Rook?" "Just me. Don't shoot." There was a pause before Rook's voice responded. "This is unwise, Ben. Return to your station." "Not happening. Face to face, like old times." Diamondhead could see movement through the bridge viewport of Rook's ship. Moments later, an airlock opened, and a figure in a space-adapted proto-armor emerged. Rook jetted toward him using the armor's propulsion system, his proto-tool strapped to his back. They met in the emptiness between the station and the plumber vessels, 2 points converging in the vastness of space. For a moment, they simply regarded each other, former partners now on opposite sides. "This doesn't have to escalate, Ben," Rook's voice came through the direct channel. "The High Protectorate is willing to address your concerns about the Earth incident." "Too late for that," Diamondhead replied. 2,000 people are already dead. Including kids, Rook. They knew the attack was coming and they let it happen. Not everyone knew. Many plumbers were as horrified as you when the truth came out. But they're still following orders, aren't they? Diamondhead gestured to the ships behind Rook. "Still coming after me instead of the people responsible." Rook's expression was visible through his helmet visor, troubled but resolute. "What you're doing, seizing facilities, building what looks like a private army, it makes you appear dangerous. There are rumors you're planning revenge attacks against plumber installations. I'm building a security force that actually protects people, without political games." Diamondhead crossed his arms. "The Tetramans understand that." "The Tetramans are warriors who respect power and little else," Rook countered. "They're using you for their own expansion. Maybe. Or maybe they're the only ones honest about their intentions." Diamondhead's crystalline eyes narrowed. "Unlike the plumbers, who talk about peace while sacrificing innocent people." A warning light flashed in Diamondhead's communication implant. The tactical feed showed movement from the plumber vessels, weapon systems powering up. "Your ships are charging weapons, Rook," he warned. "Call them off." Rook's eyes widened. "I gave no such order." A blast of energy shot past them, narrowly missing Diamondhead and heading toward the station. The station's shields flared as they absorbed the impact. "Seems like someone's not following your orders," Diamondhead said, body tensing. "Last chance, Rook. Stand down, or this gets ugly." "Ben, I swear I didn't," Rook began, but was cut off as more weapons fire erupted from the flanking vessels. Diamondhead didn't wait for more explanation. He fired a barrage of crystal shards at the weapon ports of the nearest ship, his aim precise enough to disable rather than destroy. Simultaneously, he activated his command channel. "All units, defensive engagement. Looma, you're clear to target propulsion systems." The response was immediate. The Tetraman shuttle roared from the station's hangar, its distinctive red hull gleaming as it unleashed a concentrated barrage against the lead plumber vessel. The station itself came alive with defensive fire, targeting communications and weapons systems with surgical precision. Rook jetted backward, raising his proto-tool. "Ben, stop this. We can still resolve this peacefully." "That option ended when your ships opened fire," Diamondhead replied, launching another volley of crystals to intercept a blast heading toward the station. The space between the ships became a chaotic light show of energy beams and crystalline projectiles. Rook, caught in the middle, tried desperately to order a ceasefire, but either his commands were being ignored or overridden. Diamondhead pushed off a large crystal formation he'd created, propelling himself toward one of the flanking vessels. With precise strikes, he drove crystal shards into the ship's external weapon systems, disabling them without breaching the hull. A blast from behind caught him off guard, sending him tumbling through space. He stabilized to see Rook approaching, proto-tool extended. "I can't let you attack plumber vessels, Ben," Rook said, his voice pained but determined. "Please stand down." "Can't do that." Diamondhead created a crystal shield as Rook fired again. "You're on the wrong side of this, partner." "Am I?" Rook jetted to the side, firing from a new angle. "Or have you let anger cloud your judgment?" Their battle became a deadly dance against the backdrop of the larger engagement. Rook's agility in the proto-armor matched Diamondhead's defensive capabilities, neither gaining a clear advantage. Years of partnership meant they knew each other's moves intimately, Rook anticipating Diamondhead's crystal formations, Diamondhead predicting Rook's firing patterns. A massive explosion drew their attention. One of the plumber vessels listed to the side, its engine section darkened and propulsion offline. The Tetraman shuttle circled it like a predator, weapons still trained on its hull. "Your Tetraman allies lack restraint," Rook said grimly. "That ship has over 50 crew members. Who are still alive," Diamondhead countered. "Unlike the people on Earth who your leadership sacrificed." The tactical feed in Diamondhead's implant updated. The disabled plumber vessel was being boarded by Tetraman warriors from Looma's shuttle. The second flanking ship had pulled back, its communication array destroyed by the station's weapons. Only Rook's command vessel remained fully operational, though its position was increasingly untenable. "It's over, Rook," Diamondhead said. "You're outgunned and outmaneuvered. Surrender your vessel and I guarantee your crew's safety." Rook lowered his proto-tool slightly, conflict evident in his expression. "And if I refuse? Then we continue until you can't fight anymore. But people get hurt. I don't want that. Neither do you." A long moment passed between them, the weight of years of friendship and partnership hanging in the silence. Finally, Rook's shoulders slumped slightly. "I will offer terms. No surrender, but a tactical withdrawal. My vessel will retreat with the undamaged ship. The disabled vessel and its crew." He hesitated. "I request their safe return once you've made your point." Diamondhead considered this. It wasn't a complete victory, but it accomplished what he needed, establishing that he was a force to be reckoned with, not an errant hero who could be easily brought back into line. "Agreed, with one condition," he said. "You take a message back to the High Protectorate. Tell them this territory is now under independent protection. Any plumber vessels entering this space will be considered hostile unless they request permission first." "You're declaring sovereignty?" Rook asked incredulously. "Based on what authority?" "The authority of the Omnitrix," Diamondhead replied simply. "And the alliance with Koros?" "More than enough to start with." Rook shook his head slowly. "This path leads to conflict, Ben. The plumbers won't recognize your claim. They don't have to. They just have to respect it." Diamondhead's expression softened slightly. "We were friends once, Rook. I'd rather not fight you again." "As would I," Rook admitted. "But my duty, sometimes duty means questioning the orders you're given," Diamondhead interrupted. "Remember that." Without waiting for a response, Diamond Head turned and propelled himself back toward the station, leaving Rook floating in space with much to consider. The aftermath of the battle transformed the station. Captured plumber personnel were processed, some offered positions in Ben's growing organization, others prepared for eventual prisoner exchange. The disabled plumber vessel was towed into the station's hangar bay, its technology already being studied for potential integration. In the command center, Ben had reverted to human form and was reviewing damage reports when Looma entered, still wearing her battle armor, now bearing a few scorch marks from the engagement. "Your station performed admirably," she said, approval evident in her voice. "And your personal combat skills against the Ravanaгаnder were impressive." "Rook is one of the best fighters I know," Ben replied, not looking up from the reports. "I had the advantage of knowing his tactics." "You also showed mercy," Looma observed, moving closer. "Allowing the vessels to retreat rather than capturing all three." Now Ben did look up, studying her expression. "Does that disappoint you?" "Strategic mercy can be as effective as total victory," she said with a shrug of her upper shoulders. "The plumbers will report that you could have destroyed them but chose not to. It establishes both strength and restraint, a powerful combination." Ben hadn't considered that angle. "I just didn't want unnecessary casualties." "A leader must be concerned with such things," Looma agreed. "But also with the message their actions send." She placed a data pad on the console before him. "Speaking of messages, my father has sent his response to today's events." Ben picked up the pad, scanning the Tetraman text. His eyes widened slightly as he read. "He's offering a formal alliance. Full military support, trade agreements, diplomatic recognition. The terms are generous," Looma confirmed. "But note the final condition." Ben scrolled to the end and frowned. "The alliance is contingent on our marriage being formalized within 1 Earth month." "My father believes in the old ways," Looma said, watching Ben's reaction carefully. "A political alliance sealed by marriage has been Tetraman tradition for millennia." "I told you before, yes, you're not interested in political marriages," Looma interrupted. "But consider the practical benefits, Ben Tennyson. With this alliance, your fledgling territory becomes a legitimate power overnight. Without it." She gestured to the viewports showing the vastness of space. "You have one station, a handful of followers, and the Omnitrix. Impressive, but not enough to withstand the plumbers when they return in force." Ben set the pad down, running a hand through his hair in frustration. "There has to be another way to secure the alliance." "Perhaps," Looma conceded. "But it would take time to negotiate, time you may not have. The marriage offer is available now, when you need it most." She wasn't wrong. Ben had won today, but largely due to surprise and the Tetraman shuttle's intervention. Next time, the plumbers would come better prepared and in greater numbers. "I need to think about this," he said finally. Looma nodded. "Of course. But don't take too long. My shuttle must return to Koros within 2 Earth days with your answer." She turned to leave, then paused at the doorway. "For what it's worth, Ben Tennyson, I believe you would find marriage to a Tetraman princess less burdensome than you imagine. We value strength and independence in our mates." After she left, Ben stared at the data pad for a long time, weighing his options. The alliance would transform his rebellion into a legitimate political entity overnight. Without it, he might not survive the next plumber assault. But marriage to Looma? He barely knew her, despite their history. And yet, there had been moments during the battle when they'd coordinated perfectly, as if reading each other's thoughts. Her tactical suggestions had been incisive, her warriors disciplined even in the chaos of space combat. Ben's thoughts were interrupted by the communication console activating. "Sir, we're receiving an encrypted transmission from Earth." "Earth?" Ben straightened. "Put it through to my private channel." The screen flickered to life, revealing Gwen's face. She looked tired, worried, but resolute. "Ben," she said simply. We need to talk. Gwen, he acknowledged, surprised by how good it felt to see a familiar face. How did you find this channel? Please. I've been tracking your energy signature since we were 10. A ghost of a smile crossed her face before fading. Ben, things are getting bad here. After what happened with the plumber ships, you've been declared a rogue element. They're talking about stripping you of the Omnitrix if they capture you. Ben snorted. They can try. This isn't a joke. Gwen's eyes flashed with familiar annoyance. Kevin and I are under surveillance now because of our connection to you. Grandpa Max is being questioned by internal affairs. They think he might have helped you. That was unexpected. Did he? No, Gwen said firmly. He's as shocked by what you're doing as the rest of us. Ben, please, just come home. We can work through this together. Come home to what, Gwen? Ben gestured around him. Half of Bellwood is a crater. My parents are still in critical condition. And the organization responsible is more concerned with bringing me in than holding their own accountable. So your solution is to declare war on the plumbers? To ally with the Tetramans? Gwen shook her head. I know you're hurting, Ben. We all are. But this isn't the answer. Then what is? Ben demanded. Working within a system that's fundamentally corrupt. Pretending everything will get better if we just follow the rules. Gwen was silent for a moment. I don't know, she admitted finally. But I know this path you're on leads somewhere dark. I can feel it, Ben. And it scares me. Ben's expression softened slightly. I'm still me, Gwen. I still want to protect people. I'm just done pretending that wearing a plumber badge means we're automatically the good guys. And wearing a Tetraman wedding band makes you better. Gwen's eyes narrowed. Yes, I know about that offer. Word travels fast when you capture plumber ships. It's a strategic alliance, Ben said defensively. It's a deal with the devil, Gwen countered. The Tetramans aren't interested in protection or justice, Ben. They're warriors who respect strength and conquest. Is that really who you want to become? Before Ben could respond, an alarm sounded in the background of Gwen's transmission. Her head turned sharply, listening to something off-screen. I have to go, she said urgently. They're tracking this signal. Ben, please think about what you're doing. It's not too late to come back. The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving Ben staring at a blank screen. Gwen's words echoed in his mind, mingling uneasily with Looma's pragmatic arguments for alliance. He turned to look at the star chart displayed on the main console. His territory, if it could be called that yet, was tiny, vulnerable. One station against the might of the plumbers and whatever other forces might see him as a threat or an opportunity. But with Tetraman backing, he could build something real. Something that might actually make a difference. His hand hovered over the Omnitrix, feeling its familiar weight on his wrist. For years, it had defined him as a hero. Now it would define him as something else. The question was, what? 3 days later, Ben stood in what had been the station's ceremonial hall, now hastily decorated with a mixture of Earth and Tetraman symbols. The captured plumber vessel had been stripped for parts, its systems integrated into the station's infrastructure. The crew had been released as promised, sent back to plumber territory with a clear message: this space was now sovereign territory, protected by Ben Tennyson and his Tetraman allies. And today, that alliance would be formalized. Ben adjusted the formal attire that Looma's attendants had provided, a hybrid of Earth formal wear and Tetraman ceremonial armor. The breastplate felt heavy on his chest, the material unlike anything Earth technology could produce. Nervous, hero? Kevin Levin's voice came from behind him. Ben turned, startled to find his old friend leaning against the doorframe, arms crossed casually over his chest. Kevin looked much the same as always, leather jacket, jeans, the perpetual smirk that hid more complex emotions. Kevin. How did you get here? Kevin shrugged. Gwen has her magic tricks. I have mine. Plus, your security still needs work. He stepped into the room, looking Ben up and down. Nice outfit. Very space warlord chic. I'm not a warlord, Ben said automatically. No. What would you call someone who takes over a space station, fights off plumber ships, and is about to marry an alien princess for her battle fleet? Kevin raised an eyebrow. Sounds pretty warlord-y to me. Ben sighed. Did Gwen send you to talk me out of this? Nah. She wanted to come herself, but someone had to run interference with the plumbers. Kevin moved closer, examining the Tetraman decorations with casual interest. I came because I figured you could use someone from Earth at your wedding. Even if it is a political sham. The blunt assessment stung, but Ben couldn't exactly argue with it. It's a strategic alliance. Keep telling yourself that. Kevin turned to face him directly. Look, I get it. The plumbers screwed up big time. What happened to Earth, to your family, it's unforgivable. If it were me, I'd probably be doing something similar, just with less speeches and more explosions. So you don't think I'm making a mistake? Kevin laughed. Oh, you're definitely making a mistake. Just not the one Gwen thinks. He gestured around them. All this, the station, the territory, the alliance, it's not the problem. The problem is you're still trying to be the good guy while doing bad guy things. Ben frowned. I'm not, save it, Kevin interrupted. I've been on both sides, remember? Hero, villain, somewhere in between. The moment you decided to take what you wanted instead of asking permission, that's when you crossed a line. Own it. I'm trying to build something better than the plumbers, Ben insisted. Something that actually protects people without politics getting in the way. Noble goal. But let's be real, you're about to marry a warrior princess you barely know to get access to her daddy's army. Kevin's smirk returned. That's not hero behavior, Tennyson. That's conqueror behavior. Before Ben could respond, the door opened again. One of Looma's attendants, a female Tetraman in ceremonial armor, bowed slightly. The princess awaits, Ben 10-son. The ceremony will begin shortly. Kevin clapped Ben on the shoulder. Showtime, warlord. For what it's worth, I'll stick around for a while. Someone's gotta represent Earth in your new empire. Ben watched Kevin follow the attendant out, conflicting emotions churning within him. Was Kevin right? Had he already crossed a line he couldn't come back from? The question lingered as he made his way to the main ceremony hall. The station's largest space had been transformed with Tetraman symbols and ceremonial weapons displayed prominently on the walls. A delegation from Koros filled one side of the room, warriors, nobles, and advisors all watching with varying degrees of interest and skepticism. On the other side stood Ben's people, the station crew, mostly former plumbers and new recruits drawn by his vision. And now, surprisingly, Kevin, who had positioned himself near the front, arms crossed and expression unreadable. At the center of it all waited Looma, resplendent in ceremonial battle armor that managed to be both formidable and regal. Her 4 arms were adorned with the symbols of her house, and her expression as Ben approached was one of satisfaction and approval. Ben Tennyson, she said, her voice carrying throughout the hall. You come before the representatives of Koros to formalize our alliance. I do, Ben replied, the formal words feeling strange on his tongue. In the tradition of my people, alliances of this magnitude are sealed through the joining of houses. Looma extended her lower right hand. Are you prepared to honor this tradition? This was the moment, the final commitment to a path that would irrevocably change his life and, potentially, the galaxy. Ben looked at Looma's outstretched hand, then at the assembled witnesses. Kevin's words echoed in his mind, you're still trying to be the good guy while doing bad guy things. Maybe that was the problem. He'd been thinking of this as a necessary compromise, a means to an end. But if he was going to build something that lasted, something better than what came before, he needed to fully commit to his choices. I am, Ben said, taking Looma's hand with newfound resolve. Let it be known throughout the galaxy that Ben Tennyson and Princess Looma Red Wind are joined in alliance and marriage, uniting Earth and Koros under common cause. A rumble of approval went through the Tetraman delegation. Looma's expression showed surprise at his definitive statement. Clearly, she had expected more reluctance. The terms of our alliance are thus, she continued, raising her voice. Koros pledges its battle fleets and warriors to the defense of Tennyson territory. In return, Ben Tennyson pledges to extend his protection to Koros and its interests. Agreed, Ben said. And I add this pledge, our combined strength will be used not for conquest or oppression, but to create a zone of true security, where threats are met with decisive action, and the innocent are protected without political calculation. This was not part of the script, and Ben could see surprise ripple through both delegations. Looma's eyes narrowed slightly, but she did not contradict him. Bold words, she said instead. Words that will be tested by action in the days to come. I look forward to it, Ben replied, meeting her gaze steadily. The formal ceremony proceeded with the exchange of symbolic weapons, Ben receiving a traditional Tetraman war hammer, Looma accepting a specially crafted emblem bearing the Omnitrix symbol. Vows were spoken in both languages, binding their houses together according to Tetraman tradition. When it concluded, cheers erupted from both delegations, though Ben noted the enthusiasm seemed greater from the Tetraman side. His own people appeared more reserved, perhaps still processing the implications of their leader's new alliance. As the formal gathering transitioned to celebration, Ben found himself momentarily alone, watching the mingling of two very different cultures. Kevin approached, carrying what appeared to be Tetraman ale in two oversized mugs. Congrats on the wedding, Warlord, he said, offering one of the mugs. Or should I say, Emperor Tennyson. Ben accepted the drink but frowned at the title. That's not what I'm doing. No. Kevin took a long drink. You've got territory, an army, political alliance with a major power, and a royal marriage. Sounds pretty imperial to me. It's about protection, not power, Ben insisted. Creating something better than the plumbers. Kevin shrugged. Maybe. But power has a way of changing people's goals. He nodded toward Looma, who was engaged in animated conversation with several Tetraman warriors. Your new wife certainly seems to have expansion on her mind. Heard her talking about securing adjacent sectors earlier. Before Ben could respond, a commotion near the entrance drew their attention. Station security officers were confronting someone, a small, green-skinned figure who seemed to be arguing vehemently for entry. Is that? Ben squinted, then his eyes widened in recognition. Azimuth? Indeed, the diminutive Galvan creator of the Omnitrix had somehow made his way onto the station and was now demanding to speak with Ben. Security, clearly unsure how to handle the situation, looked relieved when Ben approached. It's okay, he told them. I'll speak with him. Azimuth looked up at Ben with his usual expression of exasperation mingled with disappointment. So it's true, he said without preamble. You've abandoned your role as protector and decided to become a conqueror instead. That's not what I'm doing, Ben replied, growing tired of defending himself. No. Then explain the captured plumber vessel. The territorial claims. This. Azimuth gestured to the celebration around them, political marriage to a warrior princess. I'm creating something better than the plumbers, Ben said. Something that actually protects people without politics getting in the way. And you believe allying yourself with one of the most militaristic races in the galaxy accomplishes this? Azimuth shook his head. The Omnitrix was not created to build empires, Ben Tennyson. No, it was created to foster understanding between different species, Ben countered. Which is exactly what I'm doing. Just not in the passive way you imagined. Azimuth's eyes narrowed. You're twisting my creation's purpose to justify your actions. Your creation wouldn't be necessary if the galaxy was as peaceful as you want to believe, Ben said, his patience wearing thin. The plumbers failed Earth. They let thousands die for political convenience. I'm making sure that never happens again. Through force. Through conquest. Asmatha's voice rose slightly. That path has been walked before, Ben. It never ends where those who begin it believe it will. Kevin, who had been watching the exchange with interest, stepped forward. Look, tiny dude, I get that you're upset your favorite hero has gone off script. But maybe consider that he's got a point. The plumbers screwed up big time. People died. Something needs to change. Asmath regarded Kevin with thinly veiled disdain. And you believe this change should take the form of a human wielding the most powerful device in the galaxy to establish his own territory, backed by Tetraman war fleets? Better than letting corrupt bureaucrats decide which planets are worth saving, Kevin replied with a shrug. The Galvan turned his attention back to Ben. I created the Omnitrix to promote peace and understanding, not to establish new power structures. If you continue on this path, I will be forced to consider you in violation of our agreement. Ben's eyes narrowed. Are you threatening to take the Omnitrix back? If necessary. Asmatha's expression was grim. Though I had hoped it wouldn't come to that. For a moment, the busy celebration seemed to fade away as Ben and his creator faced each other. Ben had always respected Asmath, valued his guidance. But now, looking at the Galvan's unbending stance, he felt only frustration at another authority figure who couldn't see beyond their own rigid worldview. You can try, Ben said finally, his voice low. But a lot has changed since you gave me this watch, Asmath. I'm not the same kid who needed your approval. Clearly. Asmatha's disappointment was palpable. I will give you time to reconsider this path, Ben Tennyson. For the sake of our history. But know that the Omnitrix has safeguards you have not yet encountered. With that cryptic warning, Asmath activated a teleportation device and vanished in a flash of light, leaving Ben staring at empty space. Well, that was intense, Kevin commented, breaking the silence. Think he can actually take the watch back remotely? Ben looked down at the Omnitrix, its familiar green glow somehow comforting despite Asmatha's threats. I don't know. But I'm not changing course because he disapproves. Good, came Looma's voice as she approached, having observed the confrontation from a distance. The Galvan are brilliant but short-sighted. They create wonders, then fear how they might be used. Ben turned to his new wife, seeing the fierce approval in her expression. You heard all that? Enough. Looma rested one of her lower hands on Ben's shoulder. My father once told me that true leadership begins when you stop seeking permission from those who came before you. The Galvan created the Omnitrix, but you have mastered it. The future belongs to those who act, not those who theorize. There was wisdom in her words, though not necessarily the kind Asmath would appreciate. Ben found himself nodding, Looma's confidence bolstering his own resolve. So, Kevin interjected, what happens next in this brave new empire of yours? Ben looked around the room, at the unlikely alliance he had forged, former plumbers, new recruits, Tetraman warriors, and even Kevin Levin, standing with him despite everything. We expand, he said, decision crystallizing in his mind. Not for conquest, but for security. Create a zone where people are actually protected, without politics or bureaucracy getting in the way. The plumbers won't accept that easily, Kevin warned. They don't have to accept it. Ben's expression hardened. They just have to respect it. And if they can't learn that respect willingly. He glanced at the Omnitrix, then at Looma's approving smile. We'll teach them. As the celebration continued around them, Ben could almost feel the weight of his choices settling onto his shoulders, not as a burden, but as armor. The path ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time since the attack on Earth, it felt clear. He was no longer just Earth's defender. He was becoming something new, something the galaxy had never seen before, a human with the power of every alien species, backed by one of the most formidable warrior cultures, carving out a territory where his word was law. If that made him a warlord, as Kevin suggested, or a conqueror, as Asmoth feared, so be it. Sometimes the galaxy needed heroes. But sometimes, it needed something more. 2 weeks after the Alliance ceremony, Ben stood on the observation deck of his station, watching as Tetraman battleships moved into formation alongside refitted plumber vessels now flying his colors, the Omnitrix symbol against a field of stars. The fleet represented power unlike anything he had commanded before, and with it came possibilities that both excited and sobered him. His territory had expanded rapidly, encompassing several uninhabited systems and 2 spaceports that had eagerly accepted his protection after years of plumber neglect. News of his break with the plumbers had spread throughout the sector, drawing those who had their own grievances with galactic authorities. Quite a sight, came a voice from behind him. Looma joined him at the viewport, her imposing presence now familiar at his side. My father sends word that 2 more battle cruisers will arrive within the week. Good, Ben nodded. We'll need them for the Encephalonis system. Looma's 4 eyes blinked in surprise. You intend to move on Encephalonis? That's well within established plumber territory. It's also suffering from incursion raids that the plumbers have ignored for months, Ben replied. The Cerebellites have sent 3 distress calls. All ignored because the system isn't strategically important enough. A worthy target, Looma agreed, studying him with increased interest. Though it will certainly provoke a response from the plumbers. I'm counting on it. Ben turned to face her. Every time they fail to protect someone and we step in, their authority weakens. Eventually, people will start to question why they need the plumbers at all. Looma smiled, a predatory expression that Ben was beginning to find oddly appealing. My father was right about you, Ben Tennyson. You think like a conqueror, even if you speak like a protector. Before Ben could respond to that assessment, his communication device activated. Sir, came the tactical officer's voice, we're detecting an unidentified vessel approaching from the Gamma Quadrant. It's not responding to hails. On my way, Ben replied. To Looma, he added, duty calls. Together they made their way to the command center, where the main screen showed a sleek vessel of unfamiliar design approaching their perimeter. It moved with a deliberate slowness that suggested confidence rather than caution. Analysis? Ben asked as he took his position. Unknown configuration, the tactical officer reported. Energy readings suggest advanced technology, possibly beyond Galvan standards. Weapon status, unclear. Life signs. 1 occupant. Species. The officer frowned at his readings. Inconclusive. But the biosignature has some similarities to incursion patterns. Looma tensed beside him. Incursions? Here. Possibly, Ben said, studying the vessel's approach. Or something related. Open a channel. The communication officer complied, and Ben addressed the unknown visitor. This is Ben Tennyson, commander of this territory. Identify yourself and state your purpose. For a moment, there was only silence. Then the screen flickered to life, revealing a slim, green-skinned figure with large, amphibian-like eyes and a mouth that curved into a smile that was equal parts charming and calculating. Well, well, said Princess Attea of the Incursion Empire, her voice carrying the distinctive accent of her species. Looks like the rumors are true. The famous Ben Tennyson has gone from hero to, what exactly should I call you now? Warlord? Emperor? Rebel? Ben maintained a neutral expression, though internally he was recalculating rapidly. The Incursion princess was notoriously cunning and dangerous, and now she was at his doorstep. Just Ben works fine, he replied evenly. What brings you to my territory, Princess Attea? Her smile widened. Isn't it obvious? I'm here to discuss an alliance. She leaned forward, eyes glittering with ambition. After all, if you're taking on the plumbers, you're going to need all the friends you can get. Beside him, Ben could feel Looma bristling at the Incursion's presumption. The tension in the command center ratcheted up several notches as everyone recognized the potential complications of this unexpected visitor. But Ben merely smiled, the pieces of a larger game falling into place in his mind. The Tetramans brought military might. The Incursians could offer stealth, subterfuge, and political connections that would extend his influence in ways raw power could not. "I'm always open to discussions with potential allies," he said, making his decision. "Permission to dock granted, Princess. Let's talk about the future." As Attea's vessel moved toward the docking bay, Ben caught Looma's expression of barely contained displeasure. Their alliance was still new, still finding its balance. Adding the Incursians to the equation would complicate matters considerably. But complication meant opportunity. And if Ben Tennyson was going to reshape the galaxy, he would need all the opportunities he could get. "This could be interesting," he murmured, more to himself than anyone else, as he prepared to welcome the second princess to enter his life in as many weeks. The path he had chosen was growing more complex by the day. But with each new alliance, each new territory, his vision became clearer. A galaxy where protection didn't depend on politics. Where safety wasn't determined by strategic importance. A galaxy where Ben Tennyson's word was law. And anyone who stood against that, whether Plummer, Galvin, or former friend, would learn just how formidable an enemy the wielder of the Omnitrix could be when he stopped holding back. Chapter 2, New Allegiances. The Incursion shuttle gleamed under the harsh lights of the docking bay as Ben waited with arms crossed, watching the boarding ramp extend with a pneumatic hiss. Behind him, Looma towered like a crimson sentinel, her body language radiating tense disapproval despite her diplomatic silence. "Relax," Ben murmured. "Let's hear what she has to say before deciding anything." "Incursians cannot be trusted," Looma replied, keeping her voice low. "They are deceivers by nature." "So I've noticed," Ben said. "That's why we're meeting her on our turf, surrounded by our people." The ship's airlock cycled open, and Princess Attea emerged with the confident swagger of someone who believed herself untouchable. She wore sleek battle armor that accentuated her slender amphibian form, a stark contrast to Looma's imposing bulk. "Ben Tennyson," Attea called, descending the ramp with a casual grace. "Nice setup you've got here." "Very ambitious." Her large eyes scanned the hangar bay, noting the mix of former Plumber personnel and Tetraman warriors. When her gaze landed on Looma, her smile took on a knowing edge. "Princess Red Wind. Wasn't expecting to see you here, though the rumors about a Tetraman alliance make more sense now." "Princess Attea," Looma responded stiffly. "Your presence is unexpected." "I bet," Attea smirked. She turned back to Ben. "So, hero turned warlord, got somewhere we can talk that isn't a cold hangar bay?" A girl likes to be comfortable when discussing galaxy-changing alliances. Ben gestured toward the exit. "This way. We've prepared quarters for you, and we can meet in the command center after you've settled in." "So formal," Attea teased, falling into step beside him. What happened to the Ben Tennyson who used to crash through walls first and ask questions never? "He grew up," Ben replied simply. As they walked through the station's corridors, Ben noticed how crew members reacted to Attea's presence, wariness from the former plumbers, outright hostility from the Tetramans. The Incursion Empire's reputation for opportunistic conquest preceded her. "Your people don't seem thrilled to see me," Attea observed, seemingly amused rather than offended. "Can you blame them?" Ben asked. "The last time most of them encountered Incursians, you were trying to terraform their planets." Attea shrugged. "Dad's old school. Conquer first, ask questions never." "Me? I'm more flexible. Flexible enough to explain why you're really here." Ben stopped outside a door, which slid open to reveal spacious guest quarters. "Because somehow I doubt it's just to offer congratulations on my new career path." Attea stepped into the room, appraising it with a quick glance before turning back to Ben. Her expression shifted from casual amusement to calculated intensity. "The plumbers are scrambling," she said. You've created the biggest disruption to their authority in decades. My intelligence networks report emergency meetings, resource reallocation, strategy sessions, all focused on how to deal with Ben Tennyson and his growing territory. This isn't news, Looma interjected. We have our own intelligence. But do you know about the anti-Omnitrix weapon they're developing? Attea countered. Or the coalition of planets they're assembling to stand against you. Or maybe the covert team they've dispatched to infiltrate this very station. Ben's eyes narrowed. You have proof of these claims? I brought receipts, Attea confirmed, tapping a data device on her wrist. But information this valuable isn't free, Tennyson. Hence the alliance proposal. We will discuss terms in the command center, Looma stated firmly. After security has thoroughly scanned your vessel and verified your claim about infiltrators. Attea gave her an exaggerated salute. Whatever you say, Red. I'll be here, making myself comfortable. She flopped onto a couch with deliberate casualness. Don't take too long deciding whether to trust me. That infiltration team. They're already inside your perimeter. The command center buzzed with activity as Ben initiated station-wide security protocols. Displays showed security teams conducting sweeps of all sectors, while communications officers monitored for unauthorized transmissions. Nothing yet, the security chief reported. If there are infiltrators aboard, they're either extremely well hidden or Princess Attea is lying. Keep looking, Ben ordered. And double the guard on critical systems. Kevin entered, his typical swagger undiminished by recent events. Since arriving for Ben's wedding ceremony, he had appointed himself an unofficial advisor, a role Ben found surprisingly useful, given Kevin's unique perspective on both heroism and villainy. So, Incursion royalty shows up offering deals, Kevin said, leaning against a console. Not suspicious at all. Her intelligence about plumber movements matches what we've gathered independently, Looma pointed out grudgingly. Though that proves nothing about infiltrators. Ben studied the station schematic on the main display. Whether she's telling the truth or not, her arrival changes things. The Incursions have the galaxy's best espionage network. If we can access that. Big if, Kevin interrupted. Attea doesn't do anything that doesn't benefit Attea first. Whatever she's offering comes with strings attached, probably around your neck. Agreed, Looma said, looking vaguely disturbed at finding herself in agreement with Kevin. But we cannot simply dismiss the opportunity. The question is what she wants in return. The security channel suddenly crackled with urgency. Command, this is Team 3. We found something in maintenance shaft J-12. Some kind of device attached to the power distribution node. Ben straightened. Can you identify it? Negative, but it's definitely not standard equipment. Looks like, wait, it's activating. Everyone BA. The transmission cut off as emergency lights flashed throughout the command center. Moments later, the station shuddered as a muffled explosion resonated through the hull. Power fluctuations in sections 12 through 18, reported the operations officer. Shields holding at 82%. Life support stable. Ben turned to Looma. Get Attea up here now. If this is her doing, I don't think she'd blow up part of the station right after warning us about saboteurs, Kevin pointed out. Kind of defeats the purpose of infiltration. The doors slid open, and Attea entered, flanked by 2 Tetraman guards. She took in the emergency situation at a glance. Let me guess, you found my infiltrators. Part of the station just exploded, Ben said flatly. You know anything about that? If I wanted to blow you up, I wouldn't be standing inside the blast radius, Attea replied with infuriating logic. But I know who might. Check your external sensors, northwest quadrant, about half a light minute out. The tactical officer quickly redirected sensors. She's right, cloaked vessel detected, plumber special operations configuration. It just dropped out of stealth mode. Probably the extraction point for your uninvited guests, Attea said, moving to stand beside Ben at the command console. With casual familiarity, she reached past him to adjust the sensor display. See that energy signature? Classic plumber Black Ops. They send in a team, plant devices to disable key systems, then extract once the target is vulnerable. And you know this how? Looma demanded. Because we've used the same tactic, Attea admitted without shame. Only difference is our tech doesn't leave such an obvious energy signature. Ben made a quick decision. Scramble our fighters. Target that vessel before it can hyperspace out. Already on it, Looma confirmed, issuing commands to the Tetraman battle cruiser positioned near the station. Ben turned to Kevin. I need you to help security sweep for more devices. You can identify tech better than most of our people. On it, Kevin agreed, heading for the exit. Try not to start an interplanetary war while I'm gone. As Kevin left, Ben faced Attea. So your intelligence was accurate. That doesn't automatically earn you an alliance. No. Then how about this? Attea tossed a data chip onto the command console. Complete schematics of the plumber's anti-omnitrix weapon. Currently in development at their Galvan research facility. Ben's eyes widened slightly as he reviewed the data. The weapon appeared designed to emit a specific frequency that would disrupt the Omnitrix's transformation matrix, potentially locking him in whatever form he happened to be using, or worse, rendering the device inoperable entirely. This is detailed, he admitted. I have good spies, Attea said with a shrug. The question is, what's it worth to you? Before Ben could answer, the tactical display lit up with weapons fire. The Tetraman cruiser had engaged the plumber vessel, which was attempting to escape. Target hit, reported the tactical officer. Plumber vessel disabled. No attempt to surrender yet. Open a channel, Ben ordered. The communications officer complied, and Ben addressed the plumber vessel. Attention plumber special operations craft. Your infiltration team has been discovered and your mission has failed. Surrender now and prepare to be boarded. Static crackled over the channel before a familiar voice responded. Ben, this is Magister Patelade. Stand down. This operation was authorized by the High Protectorate itself. Which means exactly nothing in my territory, Ben replied coldly. You sent saboteurs onto my station. That's an act of war. This isn't war, son. This is containment of a rogue element, Patelade countered. You've aligned yourself with the Tetramans, seized plumber assets, and established an unlawful territorial claim. The plumbers can't allow, the plumbers don't get to decide what I allow in my space, Ben cut him off. You have 30 seconds to power down your systems and prepare for boarding, or my fighters will disable your ship permanently. The channel went silent for a long moment. Finally, Patelade's voice returned, tension evident in every word. We're standing down. But this isn't over, Tennyson. Ben nodded to Looma, who issued boarding orders to the Tetraman cruiser. He then turned back to find Attea watching him with undisguised fascination. What? He asked, uncomfortable with her scrutiny. Nothing, she replied, a smile playing at her lips. Just appreciating how far the great hero has come. Threatening plumbers, commanding battleships, making demands instead of taking orders, it's a good look on you, Tennyson. Ben ignored the compliment, if that's what it was. We'll discuss your alliance proposal once this situation is contained. For now, consider yourself a guest, not a partner. Fair enough, Attea agreed easily. I've waited this long to make my move. I can wait a bit longer. As she sauntered off the bridge, Looma moved to stand beside Ben, watching the Incursion princess depart. She is dangerous, Looma observed quietly. So are you, Ben replied with a slight smile. So am I, for that matter. Different kinds of dangerous, Looma clarified. The Tetraman way is direct, challenge, combat, victory or defeat. The Incursion way is, less honorable. Ben turned to face her. We need both approaches if we're going to succeed. The plumbers just proved they won't respect our boundaries. This won't be the last attempt to undermine us. Looma studied him for a moment. You intend to accept her alliance offer? It wasn't a question, but Ben answered anyway. I intend to consider it carefully. Just like I considered yours. Our alliance is different, Looma said, a hint of possessiveness entering her voice. We have a formal union, recognized by Tetraman law and custom. And I respect that, Ben assured her. But this isn't about personal relationships. It's about building something that can withstand whatever the plumbers and their allies throw at us. He gestured at the tactical display, where the disabled plumber vessel was now being boarded by Tetraman troops. We need every advantage we can get. Looma didn't look entirely convinced, but she nodded. I will trust your judgment in this. For now. The implied time limit in her words wasn't lost on Ben, but he had more pressing concerns. The plumbers had escalated from diplomatic pressure to direct sabotage in a matter of weeks. If Attea's intelligence about an anti-Omnitrix weapon was accurate, things would only get worse. And somewhere out there, Azimuth was working on his own solution to the problem of a rogue Omnitrix wielder. Ben had no illusions about how that would play out if the Galvan genius decided he'd strayed too far from his intended path. Time, it seemed, was not on his side. The interrogation chamber was sparse by design, a single table, 2 chairs, and walls reinforced to contain even the strongest aliens. Magister Patellides sat on one side, his amphibian features set in an expression of stubborn defiance. Ben sat across from him, Looma standing like a sentinel behind his chair. The sabotage devices have been neutralized, Ben said conversationally. Your team is in custody. Your ship is being stripped for parts as we speak. So let's talk about why the plumbers thought this was a good idea. Patellides' gills fluttered in agitation. You know exactly why, son. You've declared yourself outside plumber jurisdiction while sitting on stolen plumber technology. You've aligned with the Tetramans, a species with known expansionist tendencies. And now I see you're entertaining Incursion royalty. He shook his head. You're forcing our hand. Forcing your hand. Ben leaned forward. Let's talk about Earth. Let's talk about 2,000 dead civilians because the plumbers decided some political agenda was more important than the people they're supposed to protect. That situation is under investigation, Patellides replied stiffly. Right. The same organization that approved the sacrifice. Investigating itself. Ben's voice hardened. How convenient. What happened on Earth was a tragedy, Patellides admitted, his tone softening slightly. And if plumber protocols were violated, those responsible will face justice. But your response, setting yourself up as some kind of independent warlord, that doesn't help anyone, Ben. Doesn't it? Ben stood and activated a display screen on the wall. It showed footage of the Encephalonus system, cerebrocrustacean settlements under attack by Incursion raiders. 3 distress calls to plumber headquarters. All ignored because the system isn't strategically significant enough to warrant intervention. Sound familiar? Patellides' eyes narrowed as he watched the footage. Where did you get this? Does it matter? The point is, the plumbers are making the same choices that got Earth attacked. Deciding who deserves protection based on politics and resource allocation instead of need. We can't be everywhere at once, Patellides protested. Difficult decisions have to be made. And that's the problem, Ben said, shutting off the display. The plumbers have become bureaucrats instead of protectors. Well, I'm done with bureaucracy. In my territory, everyone gets protection. No calculations about strategic importance or political considerations. Noble sentiment, Patellides acknowledged. But you're one man with one station and a handful of Tetraman ships. You can't protect an entire sector, let alone challenge the established order of the galaxy. Ben smiled thinly. Watch me. The door slid open, and Kevin entered, holding a data pad. Finished analyzing those sabotage devices, he reported. Definitely plumber tech, but with modifications. Someone didn't want these traced back to official channels. Ben raised an eyebrow at Patelade. Unofficial operation. The Magister's gills fluttered again, a sign of discomfort. I'm not authorized to discuss operational details. Let me guess, Kevin said, dropping into the chair next to Ben. The High Protectorate wanted plausible deniability. If the mission succeeded, great. If it failed, they could disavow any knowledge of it. Patelade's silence was confirmation enough. That's what I thought, Ben said. He stood up. Here's what's going to happen, Magister. You and your team will be held here until I decide what to do with you. Your ship is now part of my fleet. And I'm sending a message to Plumber headquarters making it clear that any further incursions into my territory will be considered acts of war. You're making a mistake, son, Patelade warned. The Plumbers have allies across the galaxy. Resources you can't imagine. This path leads to conflict you can't win. Maybe, Ben conceded. But at least I'll be fighting for something I believe in, not following orders I know are wrong. He gestured to the guards. Take him back to the holding cells. Make sure his team has appropriate accommodations for their species. As the guards escorted Patelade out, Kevin whistled low. You know, 5 years ago, if someone had told me Ben Tennyson would be holding Plumber Magisters prisoner and threatening war, I'd have laughed in their face. 5 years ago, I still believed the Plumbers stood for something, Ben replied. Things change. Looma, who had remained silent during the interrogation, finally spoke. The Magister is correct about one thing, the Plumbers will not accept this challenge lightly. They will gather allies, resources. Their next move will be more direct. Let them come, Ben said, a hint of the old hero's bravado in his voice. Between the Tetraman fleet, this station's defenses, and the Omnitrix, we can handle whatever they throw at us. Kevin gave him a skeptical look. And when Azimuth decides he's had enough of his precious Omnitrix being used to build a rival power to the Plumbers? You think he doesn't have an off switch? It was a concern Ben had been wrestling with since Azimuth's visit. The Galvan genius was notoriously protective of his creation, and while the Omnitrix had bonded with Ben's DNA over the years, making it difficult to simply remove, there were likely other safeguards built into the device that even Ben didn't know about. I'm working on that, Ben admitted. For now, we focus on consolidating our position and expanding our influence. Starting with the Encephalonus system. You still plan to intervene there? Looma asked. Ben nodded. We leave in 12 hours. The cerebrocrustaceans need protection, and we're going to provide it. He turned to Kevin. Want to come along? Could use someone with your particular skills. Kevin grinned. A chance to fight incursions while you're trying to ally with their princess? Wouldn't miss it for anything. Speaking of the princess, Looma interjected, what do we do about her alliance proposal? Ben considered this. I want to see her intelligence on the anti-Omnitrix weapon verified before making any decisions. In the meantime, she stays here as our guest. Under watch. Smart, Kevin approved. Though if half of what they say about Attea is true, she'll find a way to cause trouble even under guard. Probably, Ben agreed. But sometimes trouble is exactly what you need to see clearly. He glanced at the tactical display, where the Encephalonus system glowed as their next target. Let's get ready to move. The Plumbers had their chance to protect that system. Now it's our turn. The command deck of the Tetraman battle cruiser Crimson Fist thrummed with activity as it dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Encephalonus system. Ben stood at the central tactical display, flanked by Looma and the vessel's Tetraman captain, a scarred veteran named Gorvan. Long-range scans show multiple incursion raiders in the vicinity of the third planet, Gorvan reported, his deep voice rumbling through the deck. They appear to be targeting the main cerebrocrustacean settlement. Ben studied the display. How many civilian ships in the area? At least a dozen, attempting to evacuate, Gorvin replied. The raiders are picking them off systematically. Ben's jaw tightened. This was exactly the kind of scenario the plumbers were supposed to prevent, or at least respond to. Their absence only reinforced his conviction that the old system was broken beyond repair. Deploy our fighters to escort the civilian vessels, he ordered. The cruiser will engage the incursion ships directly. Priority is protecting the civilians, not destroying the raiders. Understood, Gorvin acknowledged, relaying the commands to his crew. What of the settlement itself? I'll handle that personally, Ben said, moving toward the teleportation chamber at the rear of the bridge. Looma, you coordinate the space battle. Kevin, you're with me. Kevin, who had been examining the Tetraman weapon systems with poorly disguised envy, perked up. Finally, some action. As they entered the teleportation chamber, Looma caught Ben's arm. Be cautious, she said, her voice lower than usual. Incursion raiders are known for their disregard for sentient life. They will not distinguish between you and their targets. I'm counting on it, Ben replied with a grim smile. That's why I'm going down there. They need to know who they're dealing with now. The teleportation beam engaged, transforming their physical forms into energy patterns that reconstructed on the planet's surface moments later. Ben and Kevin materialized in what appeared to be the main square of the cerebrocrustacean settlement, or what remained of it. Buildings smoldered from weapons fire, and the distinctive crackling sound of cerebrocrustacean electrical discharges mixed with the higher-pitched whine of incursion blasters. Homie, Kevin commented, touching a nearby metal structure and absorbing its properties until his entire body took on a metallic sheen. So what's the plan? Go hero and start smashing. Ben surveyed the battle. Several incursion soldiers were advancing down the main thoroughfare, firing indiscriminately at fleeing cerebrocrustaceans. The crab-like aliens were fighting back with electrical discharges from their cranial protrusions, but they were clearly outgunned and unprepared for the assault. Something like that, Ben agreed, activating the Omnitrix. He scrolled through his available transformations before selecting one. But with a little more finesse than usual. The green flash of the transformation engulfed him, and when it faded, a crystalline humanoid stood in his place, Diamondhead, one of his oldest and most versatile alien forms. Finesse isn't exactly what I think of with Diamondhead, Kevin noted, forming his hands into blades. Watch and learn, Diamondhead replied, his crystalline voice resonating with confidence. He stepped into the street, directly in the path of the advancing incursions. For a moment, they faltered, confused by the unexpected appearance of a Petrosapien in their attack path. This settlement is now under my protection, Diamondhead announced, his voice carrying over the sounds of battle. Lay down your weapons and surrender, or face the consequences. The lead incursion, a battle-scarred commander, laughed. And who are you supposed to be? In answer, Diamondhead raised his arms, generating a massive crystal structure that rose from the ground, forming a protective barrier between the raiders and the fleeing civilians. The Omnitrix symbol prominently displayed on his chest caught the commander's attention. The wielder of the Omnitrix, the incursion hissed in recognition. Ben Tennyson. Got it in one, Diamondhead confirmed. Now, about that surrender. The incursions responded with a barrage of blaster fire, which Diamondhead deflected with crystal shields formed from his arms. The energy beams bounced back at the attackers, forcing them to scatter. Guess they want to do this the hard way, Kevin remarked, rushing forward to engage the nearest raiders. The battle was brief but intense. Kevin's metallic form made him nearly impervious to the incursion weapons, allowing him to close distance and disable raiders with brutal efficiency. Meanwhile, Diamondhead demonstrated the control he developed over his crystalline powers, creating precise structures that trapped raiders without harming them, while simultaneously extending the protective barrier to shield more civilians. Above them, the space battle played out across the sky, Tetraman fighters engaging incursion ships in flashes of weapons fire visible even from the planet's surface. The Crimson Fist itself moved into position above the settlement, its imposing silhouette casting a shadow that seemed to turn the tide of the ground battle as the raiders realized they were now caught between Ben Tennyson and a Tetraman battle cruiser. Within 20 minutes, the Incursion commander threw down his weapon in surrender. Enough. We yield. Diamond Head approached, crystal spikes still extending from his forearms in clear threat. Smart decision. Now, why is the Incursion Empire raiding cerebrocrustacean settlements? Last I checked, you were supposed to be respecting boundaries after your last failed conquest attempt. The commander's amphibian features twisted in confusion. Empire? This has nothing to do with the Empire. We're independent operators. Pirates, you mean, Kevin corrected, holding an Incursion soldier in a headlock. Privateers, the commander insisted. Working specific contracts. Diamond Head's crystalline eyes narrowed. Who hired you? The Incursion hesitated, clearly weighing his options. Diamond Head stepped closer, crystal spikes extending further. Let me be clear, he said, voice low and dangerous. You attack civilians under my protection. The only reason you're still breathing is because I want information. Don't test my patience. Something in Diamond Head's tone, a coldness that the old Ben Tennyson would have never displayed, convinced the commander to reconsider his silence. It was a plumber operative, he admitted. Off the books. Paid us to create a disturbance in this system. Kevin released the soldier he'd been restraining, moving to stand beside Diamond Head. Why would the plumbers want to attack a system they're supposed to protect? They didn't want a full invasion, the commander explained hastily. Just enough chaos to force the cerebrocrustaceans to request emergency plumber intervention. Diamond Head and Kevin exchanged glances as understanding dawned. The plumbers hadn't simply ignored the distress calls, they had engineered the crisis. A system that had been leaning toward independence, potentially aligning with Ben's growing territory, would be brought back into the plumber fold through manufactured danger and timely rescue. Except the plumbers hadn't counted on Ben getting there first. Gather your wounded, Diamond Head ordered the commander. Your ships that can still fly will be escorted out of the system. Those that can't will be impounded. And us? The commander asked warily. You're lucky I don't send you back to Princess Attea gift-wrapped, Diamond Head replied. I'm sure she'd be fascinated to learn about incursions attacking innocent settlements without imperial authorization. The mention of Attea sent a visible shudder through the commander. We'll go quietly. As the incursions began to collect their wounded, a delegation of cerebrocrustaceans approached, led by a particularly large specimen with an elaborate cranial shell. Electrical discharges crackled between his pincers as he addressed Diamond Head. Ben Tennyson, the cerebrocrustacean acknowledged, his voice carrying the distinctive mechanical resonance of his species. Your intervention was timely. The Omnitrix timed out, and in a flash of green light, Ben returned to his human form. First Thinker Lymphocyte, he greeted the cerebrocrustacean leader. Sorry we couldn't get here sooner. The plumbers ignored your distress calls. So we observed, Lymphocyte replied, electrical energy crackling with what Ben interpreted as displeasure. More concerning is the revelation that they may have orchestrated this attack. We'll need to verify that, Ben said diplomatically. But regardless, the immediate threat has been neutralized. The question now is what happens next. Lymphocyte's cranial shell opened slightly, a gesture of consideration among his species. Indeed. Encephalonus III has maintained neutrality in galactic affairs for generations, relying on plumber protection when necessary. If that protection is not merely absent but potentially hostile. Electrical discharges intensified between his pincers. Alternative arrangements must be considered. I might have a suggestion, Ben offered. My territory offers protection without political strings. No requirements to provide resources or serve anyone's agenda. Just security and freedom to develop as you choose. In exchange for what? Lymphocyte asked shrewdly. Recognition of territorial boundaries. Access to your markets for trade. And if needed, defensive cooperation. Ben gestured to the Tetraman ships now visible in the sky above them. We protected you today. We can continue to do so. The cerebrocrustacean leader studied Ben intently. You speak of protection, yet rumors tell of conquest. Ben Tennyson, hero of Earth, now carving out a territory with Tetraman allies. Some would say you have simply replaced one empire with another. Kevin, who had been silently observing the exchange, stepped forward. Look, I'm not exactly the diplomatic type, but here's the deal. The plumbers just tried to manipulate you into begging for their help by hiring raiders to attack your people. Ben showed up and stopped it. Seems like a pretty clear choice to me. Lymphocyte's cranial shell clicked in what might have been amusement. Direct, but not inaccurate. He turned back to Ben. The cerebrocrustacean high thinkers will require time to deliberate. But in the interim, we would welcome the continued presence of your forces to ensure the raiders do not return. Agreed, Ben said, extending a hand in the human gesture of agreement. After a moment's hesitation, Lymphocyte extended a pincer to complete the improvised handshake. As the cerebrocrustacean delegation withdrew to begin recovery efforts, Kevin turned to Ben. Not bad, Tennyson. You managed to stop the bad guys, make the plumbers look like jerks, and get your foot in the door with the brain crabs all in one move. Ben's expression remained serious. The plumbers created this situation. They're getting desperate if they're willing to put civilians at risk just to stop my territory from expanding. Or they're just showing their true colors, Kevin suggested. Maybe they were always this way, and you just never noticed because you were their golden boy. Before Ben could respond, his communicator activated with Looma's voice. Ben, the space battle is concluded. All hostile vessels either captured or fled. The Crimson Fist stands ready for your return. Good work, Ben replied. We've made progress with the cerebrocrustaceans. They're considering our protection offer. Excellent, Looma approved. There is one other matter. We've received an encrypted transmission from the station. Princess Attea is requesting to speak with you urgently. She claims to have intercepted communications about plumber movements that cannot wait. Ben and Kevin exchanged glances. Could be legitimate, Kevin admitted reluctantly. Or a ploy to get your attention. Either way, we need to hear what she has to say, Ben decided. We'll return to the Crimson Fist immediately. Maintain defensive positions around the settlement and prepare for possible plumber reinforcements. As the teleportation beam reconstituted them on the battle cruiser, Ben couldn't shake the feeling that the situation was accelerating faster than he had anticipated. The plumbers orchestrating attacks rather than simply ignoring them changed the equation significantly. What had begun as a stand against corruption was rapidly evolving into an open conflict with the dominant power structure of the galaxy. And somewhere in the midst of it all was Attea, the Incursion princess with her own agenda, one that remained frustratingly opaque despite her apparent eagerness to ally with him. The game was getting more complex by the hour. Ben just hoped he was still a step ahead of his opponents. The secure communication chamber aboard the Crimson Fist was designed for sensitive diplomatic exchanges, with advanced encryption and anti-surveillance measures that would make even the most paranoid intelligence operative comfortable. When Attea's face appeared on the screen, her typical smirk was replaced by an expression of unusual seriousness. About time, Tennyson, she said without preamble. While you've been playing hero on Encephalonus, the plumbers have been mobilizing. A task force is assembling at Galvan Prime, 15 enforcement vessels, 2 carrier ships, and at least 1 Galvan science vessel. Ben frowned. That's a significant force. Target? Where do you think? Attea's expression suggested she found the question naive. They're coming for you, hero. And they're bringing that anti-omnitrix weapon I told you about. My sources indicate it will be operational within 72 hours. Looma, standing beside Ben, crossed all 4 of her arms. We anticipated a plumber response, but not so quickly. The Tetraman fleet elements currently in your territory are not sufficient to repel a force of that size. And there's more, Attea continued. The plumbers have been reaching out to your old enemies. Vilgax has been contacted. So has Siphon. Ben's eyes narrowed at the mention of Siphon, the alien responsible for the attack on Earth that had started this whole chain of events. They're allying with Siphon. After what he did to Earth. Politics makes for strange bedfellows, Attea remarked. They're promising amnesty in exchange for assistance against the greater threat, meaning you. Kevin, who had been silently observing from the side, let out a low whistle. They must be really scared of you, Tennyson, if they're willing to work with Vilgax. Or desperate, Ben said quietly. He turned to Looma. How quickly can your father send reinforcements? The main Tetraman fleet could arrive within 3 days, she replied. But mobilizing them requires formal approval from the War Council. Given the scale of the threat, that should not be difficult to secure. Ben nodded, then returned his attention to Attea. What about the Incursion Empire? If I accept your alliance proposal, what forces can you provide? Attea's smile returned, though it held more calculation than humor. Wondering if I can put my money where my mouth is, Tennyson. Smart. She leaned forward slightly. I can deliver 3 stealth destroyers immediately, they're already positioned near your territory, waiting for my signal. A full battle group would take longer, as I'd need to persuade certain military commanders of the benefits of our alliance. You mean you'd need to consolidate your power first, Ben translated. Your father doesn't know about this offer, does he? Attea's expression flickered briefly before settling back into confident nonchalance. Let's just say Emperor Milius and I have different visions for the Empire's future. Mine involve strategic alliances rather than mindless conquest. And usurping your father's throne? Kevin suggested bluntly. Political transitions are an internal matter, Attea replied smoothly. What matters for your purposes is that I can deliver what I promise. The stealth destroyers now, more forces later, and the full intelligence network of the Incursion Empire at your disposal. Ben considered his options carefully. A plumber task force of the size Attea described would overwhelm his current defenses, even with the Tetraman ships already at his disposal. The anti-omnitrix weapon was an even greater concern. If it worked as described, it could neutralize his greatest advantage in one stroke. He needed Attea's resources. But trusting the notoriously duplicitous Incursion princess was a risk in itself. I want those stealth destroyers positioned to monitor the plumber task force, he decided. But they take no action without my direct order. In return, I'll consider your alliance proposal while we prepare our defense. Consider. Attea's eyes narrowed. Time is running out, Tennyson. I need more than consideration. It's that or nothing, Ben replied firmly. I'm not making hasty alliance decisions while under threat. A tense silence followed as Attea visibly weighed her options. Finally, she nodded. Fine. The destroyers will be at your disposal within 6 hours. But don't take too long deciding, hero. When that plumber fleet arrives, you'll want every ship you can get on your side. The transmission ended, leaving Ben, Looma, and Kevin to exchange concerned glances. Can we trust her intelligence? Looma asked. Probably, Kevin answered before Ben could. Attea lies about a lot of things, but military intelligence isn't one of them. The Incursians have the best spy network in the galaxy. Agreed, Ben said. We need to prepare as if everything she said is accurate. Looma, contact your father and request fleet reinforcements. Emphasize the inclusion of the Galvan science vessel in the plumber task force, that will concern him given Tetraman history with Galvan weapons. Looma nodded and moved to a separate communication station to make the secure call to Koros. Ben turned to Kevin. I need you to reach out to Gwen. If the plumbers are coming with everything they have, I want to know if she and Grandpa Max are involved. Kevin's expression sobered. You sure that's a good idea? Last time you talked to Gwen, she wasn't exactly supportive of your new career path. This is different, Ben insisted. If the plumbers are allying with Siphon, the same Siphon who attacked Earth, she needs to know. Whatever she thinks of what I'm doing, Gwen wouldn't support that. Maybe, Kevin conceded. Or maybe they've convinced her it's necessary to stop you before you become a bigger threat than Siphon ever was. The possibility hung in the air between them, uncomfortable but undeniable. The Ben Tennyson of 6 months ago would have rejected it outright. But the Ben who stood on the command deck of a Tetraman battle cruiser, expanding his territory through a combination of diplomacy and force, couldn't dismiss it so easily. Try anyway, he said finally. And while you're at it, see if you can get any additional intel on this anti-Omnitrix weapon. You still have contacts in the less reputable parts of the galaxy. Kevin grinned. Sure thing, boss. Not like I was planning to sleep anyway. As Kevin departed, Ben moved to the tactical display, studying the map of his territory. What had begun as a single station had grown to encompass several systems, with more potentially joining if the cerebrocrustaceans agreed to his protection. It was still tiny compared to the plumber's sphere of influence, but significant enough that they clearly viewed it as a threat requiring their full attention. Looma returned from her communication, her expression grim. My father is convening the War Council immediately. He agrees that a Galvan weapon designed to neutralize the Omnitrix represents a potential threat to Koros as well, given our alliance. The main fleet should begin arriving within 48 hours. Will it be enough? Ben asked quietly. Against 15 plumber enforcement vessels? Yes, Looma replied confidently. Against whatever weapon the Galvan have developed? Her confidence wavered slightly. That remains to be seen. Ben looked down at the Omnitrix on his wrist. For years, it had been his most reliable tool, transforming him into whatever alien form the situation required. The thought of it being neutralized, of being rendered ordinary in the face of an overwhelming force, sent a chill through him that he was careful not to show. Then we need to strike first, he decided. Before they can deploy the weapon. Looma's eyes widened slightly. You propose a preemptive attack? Against a plumber task force? Not the task force itself, Ben clarified. The weapon. If Attea's intelligence is accurate, it's still being completed. We find it and destroy it before it can be deployed against us. A targeted strike against a Galvan facility? Looma considered the idea. Difficult, but not impossible with proper intelligence. The Incursion Princess's spy network could prove useful in this regard. Exactly, Ben agreed. Which means I need to make a decision about her alliance offer sooner rather than later. Looma's expression darkened slightly. You intend to accept, then? I'm considering it, Ben corrected. We need her resources, especially her intelligence network. But I haven't forgotten who we're dealing with. The Tetramans have a saying, Looma offered. When swimming with predators, keep blood from the water, but always carry a spear. Good advice, Ben acknowledged with a slight smile. Let's head back to the station. I want to talk to Attea face to face before making any decisions. As they prepared to depart Encephalonis, leaving a defensive force to protect the cerebrocrustacean settlements, Ben found himself at a crossroads he'd never anticipated when he first broke with the plumbers. What had begun as a stand against corruption and political calculation had evolved into something much larger, a direct challenge to the established order of the galaxy. And with Attea now offering her resources alongside Looma's, the potential for further expansion was considerable. The question was whether he could control these powerful allies, and their ambitions, while staying true to his original purpose. Or whether, as Kevin had implied, he was already becoming something else entirely, not a hero, not a protector, but a conqueror in his own right. The journey back to the station was tense, filled with preparations for the coming confrontation. Ben spent most of it reviewing tactical simulations and defensive plans, while Looma coordinated with the Tetraman fleet elements already positioned in their territory. By the time they arrived, Attea's promised stealth destroyers had taken up positions at the outer boundaries of Ben's territory, their advanced cloaking technology making them virtually undetectable to standard plumber sensors. Their presence was a tangible demonstration of Attea's commitment, or at least, her desire to appear committed. Ben found the Incursion princess in the station's observation lounge, gazing out at the stars with uncharacteristic thoughtfulness. "Your destroyers are in position," he said as he entered, dispensing with pleasantries. "Good timing." Attea turned, her usual smirk sliding back into place. "I deliver on my promises, Tennyson. Unlike some galactic organizations I could mention." "So you keep saying." Ben moved to stand beside her at the viewport. "The question is, what do you want in return?" "Really want, not the diplomatic version." Attea studied him for a moment, as if deciding how much truth to offer. "You've created something interesting here," she said finally. "A new power, independent of the established order. It has potential." "Potential for what?" "For change," she replied simply. "The galaxy has been stagnant for too long. The plumbers maintain the status quo. The Tetramans wage their honorable wars but never truly expand their influence beyond their traditional spheres. Even the Incursion Empire has become predictable in its conquests and retreats. And you see me as a disruptive element," Ben concluded. "Something to shake things up." Attea's smile widened. "Now you're getting it. Ben Tennyson, wielder of the Omnitrix, hero turned rebel, you're unpredictable. The plumbers don't know how to handle you because you're not following any established playbook. That makes you valuable. To your ambitions," Ben added, connecting the dots. "You want to use my rebellion to create chaos that benefits your position within the Incursion Empire." "I prefer to think of it as mutual benefit," Attea countered smoothly. "You get access to Incursion resources and intelligence. I get an ally who disrupts the power structures that have kept the Incursion Empire, and me personally, in check." It was refreshingly honest, in its way. Attea wasn't pretending to share his moral concerns about the plumber's corruption. She saw opportunity in the situation and was positioning herself to exploit it. "And if our interests diverge?" Ben asked, watching her reaction carefully. "Then we renegotiate," she replied with a shrug. "Or we don't. Politics isn't marriage, Tennyson." "Well," she amended with a smirk, "except in your case with Red, I suppose." The casual reference to his marriage to Looma reminded Ben of the complexity of his position. He already had one political alliance sealed through matrimony. Adding Attea's support would strengthen his position considerably, but it would also introduce new tensions and complications. "Speaking of my wife," Ben said, emphasizing the word slightly, "how do you envision this alliance working alongside the Tetraman Pact?" Attea waved a dismissive hand. "Tetramans are straightforward, give them battles to fight and honor to uphold, and they're satisfied. My people require more, nuanced handling." Her eyes gleamed with calculation. "But that's where I come in. The alliance would be with me and my faction, not the empire as a whole, at least initially." "Until you replace your father," Ben surmised. "Political transitions happen," Attea repeated her earlier euphemism with a predatory smile. Before Ben could respond, the station's alert system activated. Red lights pulsed throughout the observation lounge as the tactical officer's voice came over the communication system. "Emergency alert. Unidentified vessel approaching at high speed. Energy signature suggests Galvan technology. It's on a direct course for the station." Ben activated his wrist communicator. "Tactical, status of our defensive systems. Shields at maximum. Weapon systems online. Tetraman cruisers moving to intercept. Hold fire until we identify the vessel," Ben ordered. "But maintain defensive posture." Attea moved to the tactical display embedded in the lounge wall, activating it with a quick gesture. "Galvan ship, traveling alone. That's either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid." The display showed a small, sleek vessel approaching rapidly, its design distinctively Galvan, elegant and deceptively simple, masking the advanced technology within. "It's hailing us," the tactical officer reported. "Put it through," Ben instructed, bracing himself for another confrontation with Azimuth. But it wasn't the Galvan genius who appeared on the screen. Instead, a familiar human face materialized, Gwen Tennyson, her expression a complex mixture of determination and concern. "Ben," she said without preamble. "We need to talk. In person. It's about the plumber task force." Ben exchanged a quick glance with Attea, whose surprise appeared genuine. "You're in a Galvan ship," he observed cautiously. "Borrowed, not stolen," Gwen clarified. "Azimuth provided it. He's concerned about the direction things are headed." "I'll bet he is," Ben muttered. "Fine. Permission to dock granted. Come alone." "Not exactly alone," Gwen admitted. "I have information you need, but also someone who insisted on coming along. Someone you should hear out before the shooting starts." Ben's eyes narrowed. "Who?" The camera angle widened to reveal Grandpa Max standing beside Gwen, his weathered face grave but determined. "Hello, Ben," he said simply. Ben felt his chest tighten at the sight of his grandfather, the man who had introduced him to the wider universe, trained him as a plumber, and most recently, had been implicated in the decision that had led to Earth's attack. "Permission still granted," he said after a moment, his voice carefully neutral. "But you both will be escorted by security at all times." "Understood," Max agreed. As the transmission ended, Attea turned to Ben with raised eyebrows. "Family reunion in the middle of preparing for war. Interesting timing." "It could be a distraction," Ben acknowledged. "Or it could be vital intelligence. Either way, I need to hear them out." "Want me to sit in?" Attea offered. "I'm pretty good at spotting deception." "I'm sure you are," Ben replied dryly. "But no. This needs to be private." Attea shrugged. "Suit yourself. But remember, Tennyson, sentiment is a luxury during wartime. Even when it comes to family." As she sauntered out of the lounge, Ben wondered if she was right. The Ben who had started this journey would have trusted Gwen and Grandpa Max implicitly. But the Ben who now commanded a growing territory, allied with Tetramans and contemplating a pact with Incursians, that Ben couldn't afford blind trust, even in family. Especially when that family had once been part of the very organization he now opposed. The conference room Ben had selected for the meeting was deliberately neutral, no tactical displays or sensitive information visible. Security officers, a mix of former plumbers and Tetraman warriors, stood at attention along the walls. Looma had insisted on attending, positioning herself behind Ben's chair like a guardian. When Gwen and Max entered, escorted by more security personnel, Ben felt a strange disconnection. These were the people who had shaped his life, his values, his understanding of heroism. Yet now they stood on opposite sides of a widening gulf. "Ben," Gwen said, breaking the awkward silence first. Her eyes flicked to Looma before returning to her cousin. "You're looking, well." "Skip the pleasantries," Ben replied, more coldly than he'd intended. "You came about the plumber task force. What do you know?" Max stepped forward, his plumber uniform absent for the first time in Ben's memory. Instead, he wore civilian clothes that emphasized how much older he looked since they'd last met. "The High Protectorate has authorized extreme measures to contain what they're calling the Tennyson situation," Max said directly. 15 enforcement vessels, specialized containment units, and a weapon designed specifically to neutralize the Omnitrix. "Tell him the rest," Gwen urged. Max's expression darkened further. "They've also granted amnesty to several high-profile criminals in exchange for assistance, including Siphon." Despite having heard this from Attea already, the confirmation from Max hit differently. "The same Siphon who attacked Earth? Who killed thousands of people?" "That Siphon?" "Yes," Max confirmed grimly. "The justification is that his knowledge of your tactics makes him a valuable asset." The reality is they're desperate and willing to make any compromise necessary to stop you. Ben looked between them suspiciously. Why are you telling me this? Last I checked, you both stood with the plumbers, even after what they did to Earth. I resigned my position, Max revealed. After the internal investigation into the Earth attack was suddenly classified and all evidence sealed. It became clear there would be no accountability. Gwen stepped closer to the table. And I've been working with a group of plumbers who share our concerns about the organization's direction. When we learned about the alliance with Siphon, many of us decided to take a stand. A little late, isn't it? Looma interjected, her voice cold. Where was this concern when Earth was attacked? When Ben first raised the alarm about corruption within your ranks? You're right, Max admitted, surprising Ben with his directness. I was slow to accept how far the plumbers had strayed from their mission. I believed in the institution so deeply that I couldn't see what it had become. His eyes met Ben's directly. I failed you, Ben. And I failed Earth. The simple admission knocked something loose in Ben's chest, a knot of anger and betrayal he'd been carrying since learning of the plumber's role in Earth's tragedy. So what now? He asked, struggling to maintain his detached demeanor. You've resigned, Gwen's joined some plumber resistance. What does that change about the task force heading for my territory? Nothing, Max said honestly. It's still coming. But we can give you the exact specifications of the anti-Omnitrix weapon, its weaknesses, and the task force's planned approach vector. And there's one more thing. He reached into his pocket and removed a small device, placing it carefully on the table. It resembled a miniature version of the Omnitrix, but with different coloration and configuration. What is that? Ben asked warily. Azimuth calls it a fail-safe key, Gwen explained. The plumbers pressured him to create a way to deactivate the Omnitrix remotely. He built this instead. It prevents any remote deactivation or tampering with the Omnitrix's core functions. Ben stared at the device with suspicion. And Azimuth just gave this to you? The same Azimuth who threatened to take the Omnitrix back if I continued on this path? Azimuth doesn't approve of what you're doing, Max said. But he approves even less of the plumber's methods. He believes the choice should remain yours, not theirs. It was exactly the kind of nuanced position the Galvan genius would take. Disapproving of Ben's actions but defending his autonomy against external control. Still, Ben hesitated. How do I know this isn't a trap? Something to make the Omnitrix vulnerable rather than protect it? You don't, Gwen admitted. You have to trust us, at least on this. Despite everything, we're still family, Ben. Looma shifted restlessly behind Ben. The Incursion princess warned against sentiment during wartime, she reminded him quietly. Attea? Gwen's eyes widened in alarm. She's here. Ben, you can't seriously be considering an alliance with the Incursions. I'm considering all options that help me protect my territory, Ben replied defensively. Attea has provided valuable intelligence and resources. 3 of her stealth destroyers are already defending our borders. The Incursions will betray you the moment it serves their interests, Max warned. Attea especially. She's playing a longer game than you realize. Like the plumbers played me? Ben countered. At least Attea's honest about her ambitions. An uncomfortable silence fell over the room as the fundamental rift between them reasserted itself. Despite the olive branch Max and Gwen were extending, they still fundamentally disagreed with Ben's path. Finally, Ben reached for the fail-safe key, examining it carefully. I'll have this analyzed before using it. As for the intelligence on the task force, I'll take it, but that doesn't change anything between us. We didn't expect it to, Max said quietly. But when the shooting starts, I wanted you to know where we stand. And where is that, exactly? Ben asked. Not with the plumbers. Not anymore. Max's expression was resolute. But not with what you're becoming either, Ben. There's a middle path between corruption and conquest. I'm not conquering anything, Ben insisted, the familiar argument rising automatically. I'm protecting systems the plumbers have abandoned or exploited. With Tetraman war fleets? Gwen challenged. With Incursion stealth destroyers? Ben, look around you. You're building an empire, not a protection service. An empire where people are safe, Ben shot back. Where decisions are made based on what's right, not what's politically convenient. For now, Gwen said softly. But power changes people, Ben. Even you. Before Ben could respond, the station's alert system activated again. The tactical officer's voice came through with renewed urgency. Command, multiple hyperspace signatures detected at the outer perimeter. Configuration matches plumber enforcement vessels. They're arriving ahead of schedule. Ben rose immediately, all personal considerations set aside. Battle stations. All personnel to defensive positions. Looma, contact the Tetraman cruisers and prepare to engage. As Looma moved to comply, Ben turned back to Gwen and Max. Looks like we're out of time for family counseling. You should return to your ship. Ben, wait, Gwen pleaded. Let us help. There's still a chance to resolve this without full-scale war. That chance ended when they allied with Siphon and built a weapon to take the Omnitrix, Ben replied, already moving toward the door. Make your choice now, stay and fight with us, or leave before the battle begins. Without waiting for their answer, he strode from the conference room, the failsafe key clutched in his hand. Whether trap or salvation, he had no time to analyze it now. The confrontation he'd been preparing for had arrived sooner than expected, and decisions had to be made in moments, not hours. As he entered the command center, the tactical display showed a grim picture. 12 plumber enforcement vessels had already arrived, with more likely following close behind. They were forming a blockade formation, designed to surround the station and cut off escape routes. Attea was already there, studying the display with predatory focus. Looks like negotiation time is over, she observed as Ben joined her. What's the play, Tennyson? We engage, Ben said firmly. Looma, status of our forces. Tetraman cruisers moving to intercept, she reported from her station. But we are outnumbered until the main fleet arrives from Koros. What about your stealth destroyers? Ben asked Attea. Can they disrupt the plumber formation? Attea's smile was all teeth. They're already in position. Awaiting your command to decloak and attack. Ben assessed the situation rapidly. The plumber force was formidable, but they didn't yet know about the Incursion destroyers hidden among them. A surprise attack might create enough chaos to even the odds until Tetraman reinforcements arrived. The plumbers are hailing us, the communications officer reported. Put them through, Ben ordered, straightening his posture as the main screen activated. The face that appeared wasn't Magister Patelade or Rook, as Ben had expected. Instead, it was a human woman with the insignia of the High Protectorate, one of the highest-ranking officials in the plumber organization. Ben Tennyson, she greeted him with cold formality. This is Protector General Labrid. You are hereby ordered to surrender your station, all vessels under your command, and the Omnitrix immediately. Failure to comply will result in decisive action. Ben's expression remained impassive. Protector General. I'm honored the High Protectorate considers me important enough to send someone of your rank. Unfortunately, I don't recognize your authority in this territory. Labrid's eyes narrowed slightly. This is not a negotiation, Tennyson. You have committed acts of aggression against plumber forces, seized plumber assets, and allied with potentially hostile species. The High Protectorate has classified you as a rogue element requiring containment. Interesting classification, Ben replied. What do you call allying with Siphon, the alien responsible for attacking Earth? How does the High Protectorate classify that decision? A flicker of surprise crossed Labrid's face before her professional mask reasserted itself. I'm not here to debate policy decisions. I'm here to secure your surrender before this situation escalates further. It's already escalated, Ben told her. You brought a task force to my doorstep. You developed a weapon specifically to neutralize me. You allied with criminals who've killed thousands of innocents. There's no walking this back now. Then you leave us no choice. Labrid's voice hardened. Be aware that any losses resulting from your resistance are on your conscience, not ours. The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving the command center in momentary silence. Well, that was predictably useless, Attea remarked. Orders, Tennyson. Ben turned to the tactical display, studying the plumber formation. They were still maneuvering into optimal positions, not yet ready to attack. The Galvan science vessel, likely carrying the anti-omnitrix weapon, was positioned at the rear of the formation, protected by the enforcement vessels. Signal your destroyers to target the Galvan vessel, Ben instructed Attea. Disable its propulsion and weapons systems, but try to avoid destroying it completely. We need to capture that anti-omnitrix weapon. Attea nodded, relaying the commands through her secure channel. Looma, have the Tetraman cruisers engage the forward elements of the plumber formation. Keep them distracted while the incursion ships make their move. And you? Looma asked, noting his determined expression. Ben activated the Omnitrix, scrolling through his transformation options. I'm going to give them something else to worry about. He selected his alien form and slammed down on the Omnitrix. Green energy engulfed him, and when it faded, a massive crystalline being stood in his place, Diamondhead, one of his most durable transformations. Prepare a fighter for launch, Diamondhead ordered, his crystalline voice resonating through the command center. I'll lead the assault on the Galvan vessel personally. That's either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid, Attea observed, though her tone suggested admiration rather than criticism. Those plumber ships will target you the moment you leave the station. Counting on it, Diamondhead replied. The more attention on me, the less on your destroyers when they decloak. As he strode toward the hangar bay, Attea fell into step beside him. I'm coming with you, she announced. Diamondhead paused, studying her with crystalline eyes. Why? 3 reasons, Attea said, counting on her fingers. 1, I'm an excellent pilot. 2, I know Galvan ship designs better than most, which helps if we're boarding one. And 3, her smile turned predatory, if we're going to be allies, what better way to seal the deal than spilling enemy blood together? Before Diamondhead could respond, Looma's voice came through his communicator. Ben, Gwen and Max Tennyson are requesting permission to join the battle. They claim they can provide tactical support from their Galvan vessel. Diamondhead exchanged a look with Attea, who shrugged. Family complications. Not my area. After a moment's consideration, Diamondhead responded. Grant permission, but monitor their movements closely. If they make any suspicious maneuvers, consider them hostile. The decision made, he continued toward the hangar bay with Attea at his side. The battle ahead would define the future of his territory, and perhaps the galaxy itself. With Tetramans, Incursions, and now potentially Gwen and Max fighting alongside him, the conflict had expanded far beyond a personal stand against plumber corruption. It had become a war for a new vision of the galaxy, one where power served protection, not politics. And Ben Tennyson was committed to winning it, whatever the cost. The fighter bay was a hive of activity as Tetraman pilots prepared to launch, their forearmed efficiency making the pre-flight procedures look like choreographed combat drills. Diamondhead's crystalline form drew stares as he strode through, Attea keeping pace beside him. Take the lead fighter, he instructed her, pointing to a sleek craft at the front of the formation. I'll ride shotgun. Attea raised an eyebrow. You're letting me pilot? How trusting. Strategic, Diamondhead corrected. You're a better pilot than I am, and I need my focus for what comes next. As they boarded the fighter, the bay doors began to open, revealing the chaos of the emerging battle. Tetraman cruisers had engaged the forward elements of the plumber formation, their distinctive red hulls visible among the flashes of weapons fire. The station's defense systems were active, creating a barrier of energy that the plumber vessels were testing but not yet attempting to penetrate. "All fighters, launch sequence initiated," came the controller's voice over the communication system. "Primary objective, create disruption pattern alpha to cover special operations approach to Galvan vessel." Attea's hands moved over the controls with practiced ease, bringing the fighter systems online. "Ready when you are, Crystal Boy." Diamond had secured himself in the co-pilot's position, his crystalline body adapting to fit the space designed for more flexible species. "Launch." The fighter shot forward, accelerating out of the bay and into the vacuum of space. Around them, other fighters followed, forming a wedge formation as they headed toward the battle. "Incursion vessels still cloaked," Attea reported, checking a specialized display on her wrist device. "They're in position but waiting for optimal moment to strike." "We need to get closer to the Galvan ship," Diamond had said, studying the tactical overlay on the fighter's display. "It's staying well back from the main engagement." Attea nodded, adjusting their course to swing wide around the primary battle zone. "Going for the indirect approach." "Hang on." She pushed the fighter into a tight spiral, using the chaotic energy readings from the main battle to mask their approach. The maneuver showcased her piloting skills, precise, aggressive, but controlled. "Plumber fighters on intercept course," Diamond had warned, noting 6 smaller craft breaking from the main formation to pursue them. "Perfect," Attea grinned. "Now it gets fun." She executed a series of evasive maneuvers that would have incapacitated most species, the G-forces enough to make even Diamond Head's crystalline structure creak. The plumber fighters struggled to match her unpredictable flight pattern, their more disciplined approach proving a disadvantage against Attea's maverick style. "We've got their attention," she announced. "Signal your incursion friends to make their move." Diamond had activated his secure channel. "Strike team to incursion destroyers. Execute primary attack plan." "Repeat, execute primary attack plan." For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, suddenly, 3 incursion destroyers materialized around the Galvan science vessel, their cloaking technology deactivating to reveal sleek, predatory ships with weapons already targeting the vessel's key systems. The effect was immediate. The plumber formation dissolved into chaos as commanders attempted to respond to the unexpected threat at their center. Fighters that had been pursuing Attea and Diamond Head broke off to defend the Galvan vessel, creating the opening they needed. "Now!" Diamond Head ordered. Attea didn't need to be told twice. She drove the fighter directly toward the Galvan vessel at maximum speed, taking advantage of the momentary confusion to close distance rapidly. "How exactly are we boarding?" she asked as they approached. "I'm assuming you don't want to blow a hole in the ship containing a weapon that could neutralize your precious watch." In response, Diamond had placed his crystalline hand on the fighter's hull, concentrating. Crystal began to grow from his palm, spreading across the exterior of the craft and forming a protective shell. "When we impact, this will create a controlled breach," he explained. "The crystal will penetrate their hull but seal the rupture simultaneously, preventing decompression while giving us entry." Attea's eyes widened slightly. "Impressive. You've gotten creative with your powers since our last encounter." "Necessity breeds innovation," Diamond Head replied. "Brace for impact." The fighter slammed into the Galvan vessel's outer hull, the crystalline formation doing exactly as Diamond Head had described, punching through the advanced alloys while simultaneously creating a sealed tunnel between the two craft. Alarms blared inside the Galvan ship as Diamond Head and Attea emerged from the crystal tunnel, entering what appeared to be a secondary storage bay. "Ship schematic?" Diamond Head asked, scanning for immediate threats. Attea consulted her wrist device, which projected a holographic layout of the vessel. Galvan science vessels typically house their primary research in the central chamber, 2 levels up from here. That's where the weapon would be. Defenses? Automated security systems, probably some Galvan technicians, maybe a few plumber guards. Attea drew a slim blaster from a holster at her hip. "Nothing we can't handle." Diamond Head nodded and moved toward the interior door, which was already locked down in response to the breach. With a precise application of strength, he forced the door open, crystal shards reinforcing the gap to prevent it from closing again. The corridor beyond was bathed in emergency lighting, casting everything in an eerie red glow. Alarm klaxons continued to sound, but there was no immediate sign of security response. "They're scrambling to deal with the larger battle," Attea surmised. "Probably didn't expect a direct boarding action." "Their mistake," Diamondhead said, leading the way toward the central chambers. They encountered the first resistance at an interior security checkpoint, 2 plumber guards and an automated defense turret. The turret activated first, firing a concentrated energy beam that Diamondhead deflected with a crystalline shield formed from his arm. Attea rolled to the side, her blaster firing with surprising accuracy to disable the turret's targeting system. Meanwhile, Diamondhead advanced on the plumber guards, who had taken cover behind reinforced barricades. "Surrender," he called to them. "We're only here for the weapon, not to harm personnel." "Stand down, Tennyson," one of the guards shouted back. "This has gone far enough." In response, Diamondhead slammed his fist into the floor, creating a wave of crystal that surged toward the barricade, engulfing it and immobilizing the guards before they could react further. "Sorry," he said as he passed their now trapped forms. "But I'm done taking orders from the plumbers." Attea followed, giving the trapped guards a mocking salute as she passed. "Efficient," she commented to Diamondhead. "Though I might have just shot them." "Not how I operate," Diamondhead replied shortly. "Your moral code is adorably inconsistent," Attea observed as they reached an elevator shaft. "Leading an armed rebellion is fine, but shooting plumber guards is a bridge too far." Diamondhead ignored the commentary, forcing the elevator doors open and creating crystal handholds along the shaft wall. "This way up." As they climbed, the ship shuddered around them, evidence that the battle outside was intensifying. Through their communication channels, they could hear updates from both Looma and the Incursion destroyer commanders. The plumbers were putting up a fierce resistance, but the surprise of the Incursion attack had given Ben's forces a temporary advantage. They emerged into a corridor 1 level below the central chamber, only to find themselves face to face with a more substantial security detail, 6 plumber specialists in advanced armor, weapons already trained on their position. "This is your final warning, Tennyson," their leader announced. "Stand down or we will use lethal force." Diamondhead assessed the situation quickly. The corridor was too narrow for easy maneuvering, and the plumbers' positions gave them clear lines of fire. Before he could formulate a plan, Attea acted. She tossed a small device down the corridor, not a grenade, as Diamondhead initially feared, but some kind of scrambler that disabled the plumbers' weapons with a targeted electromagnetic pulse. In the moment of confusion that followed, Diamondhead surged forward, creating a crystal wall that separated 3 of the plumbers from their comrades. Attea engaged the isolated group with surprising hand-to-hand prowess, her Incursion agility making up for her smaller stature as she disabled the confused specialists with efficient strikes. Diamondhead handled the remaining 3, using crystal formations to disarm and immobilize rather than injure. Within moments, all 6 plumbers were subdued. "Not bad, Princess," Diamondhead acknowledged as they continued toward the central chamber. "Years of assassination training pays off," Attea replied casually. "Father insisted I learn to kill with or without technology. Charming family tradition. Says the guy whose cousin throws energy bolts and whose grandfather collects alien tech like some people collect stamps." They reached the entrance to the central chamber, a massive door of Galvan design that would ordinarily be impervious to force. But Diamondhead had evolved beyond simply smashing obstacles. He placed both hands on the door's surface, concentrating as he sent crystal formations into the microscopic seams of the locking mechanism. With precise manipulation, the crystals expanded within the lock, forcing the components apart until the security system failed and the door slid open. The central chamber was a marvel of Galvan engineering, a vast circular space filled with advanced technology, holographic displays, and workstations sized for the diminutive Galvan scientists. At the center stood a device that could only be the anti-Omnitrix weapon, a cylindrical apparatus surrounded by energy fields and monitoring systems. And standing before it, arms crossed and expression severe, was Azimuth himself. "I should have known you'd attempt this, the Galvan." Genius said, his small size doing nothing to diminish the authority in his voice. "Though bringing an Incursion princess as backup is a surprise even for you, Ben Tennyson." Diamondhead stepped forward, crystal formations receding slightly in a gesture of restraint. "Azimuth. I'm here for the weapon." "Obviously," Azimuth replied dryly. "The subtlety of crashing a fighter into my ship and forcing your way to the central chamber wasn't lost on me." "Time constraints," Diamondhead explained simply. "The plumbers brought this confrontation, not me. And you escalated it by allying with the Tetramans and now, apparently, the Incursions." Azimuth's gaze shifted to Attea, who offered a mocking curtsy in return. "You continue to make choices that confirm the High Protectorate's concerns about your judgment." "My judgment?" Diamondhead's crystalline features hardened. "The plumbers allowed Earth to be attacked for political convenience. They're allying with Siphon, the very alien responsible for that attack. And you're helping them create a weapon to neutralize me rather than holding them accountable." "I created this device under duress," Azimuth corrected him. "And deliberately included limitations the plumbers are unaware of. It would have temporarily disrupted the Omnitrix's transformation capabilities, nothing more." "That's still more support than you've shown me," Diamondhead pointed out. "I'm trying to build something better than the plumbers, Azimuth. Something that actually protects people without political calculations. With Tetraman war fleets and Incursion stealth tactics." Azimuth shook his head. "You're building a power base, Ben. Whether you admit it to yourself or not." Attea, who had been examining the weapon with professional interest, interjected. "Fascinating debate, but perhaps something went wrong with this response. Please try again. Start unfolding the next chapter now." The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.